All right, that just about does it for us on American Agenda today. But yep, voting in full swing on this Super Tuesday, super important day, and our coverage does not stop here.
No, it doesn't. I will be on tonight at 10 p.m. with Jen Pellegrino. It'll be interesting to see our landscape tomorrow. Everyone, we'll see you then.
It's 4 o'clock in St. Paul, Virginia. It's 1 p.m. in Pacifica, California. Super Tuesday voting is underway. How many of you have voted early? How many of you voted today? How many of you are still on the fence as to whether or not you'll take the time to vote? You folks are the ones I urgently want to talk to. Without fear or favor, the Chris Salcedo Show starts right now. Everybody, welcome to your only conservative alternative at 4 p.m. Eastern, the Chris Salcedo Show on Newsmax. Here are the headlines trending across America. It's Super Tuesday. Voters casting their ballots in 16 states and 1 U.S. territory as Trump looks to deliver a knockout blow on his way to locking up the nomination. This amid a suspicious social media blackout. What happened? We're going to bring you the latest. And the Democrats race to replace Joe Biden. Michelle Obama finally speaking out about all those reports that she's in the running. Tennessee Congresswoman Diana Harshbarger joins me in mere moments to react to Biden's multiple crises. And the attorneys who fought against Colorado's unconstitutional Trump ballot ban joins us to react to the unanimous Supreme Court rebuke of the left-wingers pushing the anti-Americanism of denying our people a choice at the ballot box. But first, Super Tuesday. There are 16 states and a territory having primaries and caucuses today. This is either stage one of returning our nation to the constitutional representative republic that made it the envy of the world, or it's the first step toward 1,000 years of darkness. It's really up to you, for the time being. Vote like the nation's survival depended on it. That's my advice in today's preamble. If you're on the fence or on the couch about whether or not you should be voting, consider the words of President Trump. He's pushing for a landslide, an overwhelming rebuke of lawless, corrupt, left-wing anti-Americanism. Can't get a landslide if folks stay home. Can't get rid of all those causing all the problems if you don't coordinate with your neighbors and community and get them out. What would drive you to the polls? Perhaps your big issue is the Uniparty's massive overspending. While your family struggles to make ends meet with massive inflation hammering away at your bottom line, Congress is overspending like there's no tomorrow. On top of their already profligate spending, their childish and wasteful overspending, both parties want to use your tax dollars to get them reelected. As millions vote on Super Tuesday, both parties are using your money to buy your votes and the votes of your neighbors through their disgusting and crooked practice of earmarking. 605 pages worth. They are voting on 6 appropriation bills, not the required 12. The Congress believes they should get fully funded even though they can't do half their job. Now, if this makes you angry, perhaps you're angry enough to vote out any politician who votes for this nonsense. Maybe the Democrats' illegal immigration campaign has you ticked off. The Supreme Court just temporarily stopped Texas from enforcing a new law that allows Texas law enforcement to arrest, detain, and deport illegals. Maybe you're tired of all the lawlessness promoted by Democrats. Are you tired enough to vote them out? What about the corrupt lawfare launched by corrupt Democrats to deny Americans a real choice at the ballot box in November? According to a new court filing, a new witness could testify that controversial Georgia DA Fani Willis warned her lover's former business partner to stay quiet about their affair. In a September 2023 phone call, Terrence Bradley is alleged to have been told, quote, "They are coming after us. You don't need to talk to them about anything about us," end quote, from Fani Willis. Does the fact that Democrats keep getting away with shady and illegal things make you mad enough to get out there and vote? What about the White House and the biased press? They pretend that Joe Biden's rapidly declining mental acuity is normal. Indeed, in the 2020 campaign, Joe Biden went on a racially tinged rant against a black reporter for daring to ask him about taking a cognitive test.
Mr. Vice President, your opponent in this election, President Trump, has made your mental state a campaign topic. And when asked in June if you've been tested for cognitive decline, you've responded that you're constantly tested in effect because you're in situations like this on the campaign trail. But please clarify specifically, have you taken a cognitive test?
No, I haven't taken a test. Why the hell would I take a test? Come on, man. That's like saying before you got in this program, if you take a test where you're taking cocaine or not, what do you think, huh? Are you a junkie?
What do you say?
And just the other day, Biden's new brain was asked again why Joe Biden refuses to take a cognitive test. Here's what she said.
I think folks need to understand that the president passes, again, a cognitive test every day. If you look at what a clinical cognitive test is actually, what it actually does, it is a 15-minute appointment that is administered by someone that most of the time people don't actually know. And the president has a team of doctors that is with him 24/7, and he is able to do the work every day that is rigorous, that is more rigorous than it would be for any 15-minute clinical appointment.
About the tests Joe Biden takes every day. Is he passing those tests, in your view? Here he is claiming he has spoken to and wants to speak to dead people.
And I want to thank all of you here for including bipartisan elected officials like Representative Governor, Senator Braun, Senator Booker, Representative Jackie. Are you here? Where's Jackie? I didn't think she was going to be here. I sat down and I said, "America's back." And Mitterrand from from France, looked at me and said, "You know, why? How long are you back for?" As you know, initially, the president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in.
Yeah. And of course, doesn't know where Mexico is. And what about Joe Biden's ability to communicate ideas to the American people? Let's see if he passes this cognitive test.
My name's Joe Biden. I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate. Look me over. If you like what you see, help out. If not, vote for the other guy. Give me a look, though, okay? Barack and I think it's a right for people to have bad health care. I'll lead an effective strategy to mobilize true international effort to pressure.
The way China will respond is when we gather the rest of the world that, in fact, believes in open trade and making sure that we're in a position.
COVID has taken this year, just since the outbreak, it's taken more than 100 years. Look, here's the lives. I mean, you think about it. More lives this year than any other year for the past 100 years.
Yeah, think about it. In fact, for the last 3 years, Joe Biden has been showing us, as much as his handlers will let us see, just how sharp he really is or how dull he really is. So perhaps the fact that the Democrats in and out of the press have been peeing on our feet and telling us it's raining, is that enough to get your ire up and get you out there to vote? The way I see it, conservative voters have a big task. We have to eliminate pro-Democrat Republicans from government so they can't go to our state capitals and the U.S. Capitol and betray us, sell out our rights, our security, our prosperity just to please their Democrat friends. For you liberals out there, you have a different task. For those of you who wish to remain Americans, you have to vote out all of your lawless, woke, pro-criminal politicians. If you ever want your kids to walk down safe streets ever again, or if you wish to hit the grocery store without having to take a loan out first. We the people have a lot to do. Taking back our government is the first step to saving this country. So get up and vote as if your future and the future of this nation depended on it, because they do. Joining me now to discuss is Tennessee Congresswoman Diana Harshbarger. Good to see you, Congresswoman. One of the top issues this election cycle is the multiple border crises created by the Biden regime. It's so bad that reports say the regime now is transporting illegal aliens on secret flights into the United States, and a FOIA lawsuit against Biden's immigration agencies reportedly revealing that The Border Patrol is refusing to disclose the location of over 300,000 illegal aliens. We should know where they are. Why do a majority of politicians force our people to fund all of this illegal activity? Congresswoman, I guess, did we just lose her? How often does that happen? Every single time we come up on the question, we wind up and then the computer freezes. So, guys, are we going to reestablish connection, or do we think we should just move on? And we are going to reestablish. Okay. Well, all right. Well, in case you folks are keeping track at home, there is something called an illegal immigration crisis in this country. Anywhere. Well, President Trump, in my interview with him, he said he believes, closer to 15 million illegal aliens brought into this country by Joe Biden and his Democrat Party. I'm hearing anywhere between 10 to 12, but it is an outrageous amount of people. So, you know what? I would really have loved to have made a connection with a congresswoman, but folks, I don't think we're going to get her back. So anyway, you all know the score of what's happening out there in illegal immigration and all the overspending. So when you're heading out there to the polls, I think you folks ought to keep that in mind. Straight ahead on the Super Tuesday edition of the Chris Salcedo Show, Democrat voters threatening to ditch Joe Biden on the ballot. Our political panel joins us to discuss that. And things are getting worse for Fani Willis and her lover. Now a Georgia prosecutor is offering to testify against her. Now this could further seal her fate and the weak case against Trump and his co-defendants. Plus, the Supreme Court stands with the Constitution. Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita, who led the charge against Colorado's unconstitutional ballot ban, is going to join us live this hour with all kinds of reaction to that. More on the way on Newsmax. Well, as we've been telling you, folks, Super Tuesday, the countdown to the nomination is on. 874 delegates up for grabs tonight. Trump team predicts they will secure the nomination by next Tuesday, March 12th. Nikki Haley, on the other hand, has no apparent path to victory. Her campaign has not scheduled any public events tonight, leading many to conclude she has a different goal for remaining in this race. Let's bring in our panel, CPAC Chairman Matt Schlapp and host of America Right Now, Tom Basile. Welcome to you both, gentlemen. Matt, you first. If Haley isn't in it to win it, which even the most strident Haley supporters concede, well, she can't win at this point, statistically speaking, why is she there?
Well, because, you know, this is a countervailing point. Usually in presidential politics, you have to get out because you run out of money. Because the left has enjoying her candidacy so much and her new mission or her new message, which is rooting on lawfare. Trump's too old, too much chaos. I'm a better candidate because I'm a woman, because my skin color's darker, yada, yada, yada. They love that message so much that they're funding her, so she hasn't run out of money. So I guess it's like almost like if you're a self-funder, you can stay in as long as you want, but eventually you wonder, okay, is it all worth it? And for her, Chris, what she's doing is with every day she stays in this, you know, no way to win campaign, she's destroying her reputation as somebody who could have been there 4 years from now.
Well, you know what, I got to tell you, Gavin Newsom, I think, is forecasting Nikki Haley's future. He's saying that she's one of the best surrogates for Democrats out there. So I think, frankly, that she has a bright future in the Democrat Party. Tom, 9 states have an uncommitted or none of the above option on the ballot, speaking of Democrats. Whopping 13% of those Democrats voted uncommitted in the Michigan primary against Joe Biden. Do those numbers get better or worse for Joe Biden during and after Super Tuesday voting?
Well, look, that's actually one of the things that I'm looking at tonight, particularly in a place like Minnesota, where there's a large Muslim population there, and it's also Dean Phillips' home state. Place like Vermont, where Bernie Sanders' home state, you've got a lot of socialists and a lot of hardcore progressives. So we could see those numbers go up. and expose really the enthusiasm gap that the Democrats have here with the Republicans. I actually take kind of a little bit of a different view. I think that Haley staying in the race is going to be better for Trump. I think he's going to actually be able to drive out more voters. People are going to want to come out, and that's going to really telegraph continued strength for the party against Joe Biden. And I do think you're going to see that enthusiasm gap really play out here tonight as we watch these 15 states come in.
Yeah, and just for the both of you gentlemen, Texas, one of those Super Tuesday voting states, I got word from early voting totals that I think it's 2-1. Twice as many Republicans are voting in the primaries than Democrats in the state of Texas. Just something to keep an eye on. Matt, in the meantime, down the ballot, former Major League Baseball star Steve Garvey. He's polling ahead of the repugnant and dishonest Adam Schiff in the California Senate race. We don't know how the numbers are going to break, come November, but is Schiff's unpopularity, and with that, if he gets defeated by a Republican with high name ID in California, isn't that very bad news for Democrats and their large lurch left they've taken across the country?
Yeah, except remember, the Democrats have become so woke and cocky in states like California that they've instituted this jungle primary, and they did that because that allows the top 2 vote getters in the primary to go to the general election, and they're assuming California's turned so woke and left that it'll be 2 Democrats, and that way they can't lose any races. But the problem is they have several Democrats running, and Steve Garvey's sitting there as the only major Republican. And you know what? It turns out that drug-ridden, crime-ridden Los Angeles and San Francisco might not be as popular as the socialists think it's going to be. Remember, Richard Riordan was able to win famously that mayor's race in L.A. A generation ago. Rudy Giuliani was able to win in New York City because guess what? Crime is not popular with voters, believe it or not, especially if you have to live in that city.
Yeah, even Democrat voters are not really high on crime, but that's all their politicians dish up for them all around this country. Tom, last thing, I interviewed President Trump yesterday. Left-wing press going nuts over this. They pretend that illegal aliens have a right to be in the United States when they're hurling their criticism at Trump and me, while they bash the president for pledging to do something about those illegal aliens. Listen. Will you order mass deportations if you win the White House?
Oh, day one, we have no choice, and we'll start with the bad ones. And you know who knows who they are? Local police. Local police have to be given back their authority, and they have to be given back their respect and immunity. We're going to give them immunity. And they know them by the first name, the middle name, and the last name. And they will take them out, and we will get them out.
Yes, see, and of course, a lot of Democrats around the country saying, what, please don't get rid of all of these bad people, these criminals. Majority of Americans don't support illegal immigration or rewarding illegal immigration, including rewarding illegal alien criminals. This is a winner for Trump and politicians who actually are pushing back against the lawlessness and pushing for law and order, yes?
Yeah, absolutely, and especially in places where Trump needs to win, and those are the suburbs of the cities in those swing states. Because, when you have a crime wave and you don't support your police, or when you have an illegal immigrant problem, it's not, it doesn't just reside in the cities. It starts to make its way out into the suburbs, and we're seeing that in a lot of places across the country. Look, 70% of people in California say that the border is a crisis, is a national crisis. That's California. So this is something that Trump is hitting on, supporting our police and also doing something about immigration. It's really his best issue, and he's going to be able to speak to those suburban voters he needs with that issue if he continues to drive that message.
Poll after poll after poll across the states, guys, illegal immigration is the #1 issue in this country, and the Democrats' role in pushing it. Tom Basile, Matt Schlapp, guys, appreciate the visit as always. There's big news from Newsmax. We've been telling you about the new streaming service, Newsmax Plus. Just launched in November, and over 200,000 folks have already signed up. That's right, 200,000 Americans just like you signed up for Newsmax Plus because they're tired of the old media. Remember, with Newsmax Plus, you can watch us anytime and anywhere. Plus, you'll get all your great shows. your liberty-loving Latino here. Rob Schmidt, Greg Kelly, Greta Van Susteren, Eric Bowling, Carl Higbee, everybody here on Newsmax. And you'll get all the great guests too, Dick Morris, Carrie Lake, Mike Huckabee, Alan Dershowitz, other top experts across every industry. Newsmax Plus also gives you great shows, all of President Trump's rallies, movies and documentaries, and best of all, doesn't cost you a thing to get started. So begin your free trial today. Go to newsmaxplus.com. Turn on the real media that you deserve. Straight ahead, watch a self-avowed socialist congresswoman get a taste of her own radical medicine. Spoiler alert, it doesn't go down very easy. And drama reaching a fever pitch as new witnesses come forward in the Fani Willis disqualification case. The damning details next on Newsmax. Glad you made it back, everybody. The Chris Salcedo Show here on Newsmax. Here's what's trending at the bottom of the hour. First, to Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's latest self-inflicted controversy. She was confronted by protesters bashing Israel's war effort against Hamas. She aggressively got in the man's face, telling him the confrontation was, quote, not okay.
You refuse to call it a genocide in front of everybody.
I need you to understand that this is not okay.
It's not okay that there's a genocide happening. You're not actively against it.
You're lying. We can't call it a genocide. How do you say that? We're not lying.
Do you have any comments?
You're going to cut it, and you're going to cut this, and you're going to clip this so that it's completely out of context. I already said that it was, and y'all are just going to pretend that it wasn't over and over again. It's
just like you do to Republicans, sweetie. But that's a very different tune from the one she was singing during the 2020 riots. Take a look at this resurfaced tweet. Quote, "The whole point of protesting is to make people uncomfortable. Activists take that discomfort with the status quo and advocate for concrete policy changes. Popular support often starts small and grows. To folks who complain, protest demands make others uncomfortable. That's the point." End quote. But now that the tables have turned on AOC, it's not okay. Isn't it great when leftists are bitten by the monsters that they created? New filing in the Fani Willis disqualification case raises new allegations of perjury from Nathan Wade's former partner Terrence Bradley under oath. Bradley claimed he did not know or could not remember when Willis and Wade's relationship began. Another Georgia prosecutor has come forward to say that Bradley explicitly told her exactly when it started. In a Monday court filing, Cindy Lee Yeager, co-chief deputy district attorney for Cobb County, Georgia, alleges Bradley told her that Wade and Willis met and started their romantic relationship in 2019, and that Willis asked Bradley to keep it quiet. That's a big problem because all three of these folks testified under oath that Fani and Wade didn't start their affair until after charges were filed against President Trump. Social media users across the United States reported major outages on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads and YouTube. Many people received persistent error messages when they tried to log into their accounts or had difficulty loading their feeds. DownDetector.com reported over 450,000 Facebook outages and 73,000 Instagram outages throughout the morning. The disruptions come as millions of people head out to the polls for Super Tuesday. What a coincidence. And Nikki Haley and Joe Biden have something else in common: the support from Mark Cuban. The billionaire Dallas Mavericks owner tells Bloomberg News he cast his ballot for Trump's long-shot primary challenger in Texas. Cuban is yet another left-winger supporting Haley and Joe Biden. He openly admits he will vote for Joe Biden even if he faces against Trump in November. Cuban says he is undeterred by Biden's age and cognitive decline. Quote, if they were having his last wake and it was him versus Trump and he was being given his last rites, I would still vote for Joe Biden, end quote. Some men just like to watch the world burn. Coming up, Michelle Obama breaks her silence on whether she's running for president. We have her answer. But first, your Wall Street Wrap.
Hey folks, a negative day in the major markets on Wall Street with some of the biggest names like Tesla, Microsoft, and Netflix, all of them down 3%. As a result, the tech-heavy NASDAQ was down 267 points. The broad S&P 500 was off 52 points, and the historically significant Dow Index, the Dow Industrials, lower by 1% or more than 404 points. Now, a very interesting day in crypto with Bitcoin hitting an all-time high of more than $69,000. But the story doesn't stop there. Then it turned around and fell more than 5,000 points. If you're a technical analyst, you're wondering now, is this a double top? Only time will tell. Elsewhere, Ford announces its sales jumped in February, which were led by hybrids and electric vehicles. Yes, Ford. They also said EV sales jumped nearly 26% year over year, and the highest demand came from the F-150 Lightning pickup truck. The Mustang Mach-E also saw a huge jump in sales last month. Gas-powered SUVs also went up more than 80% year over year. Meanwhile, General Motors announces it is recalling 82,000 trucks due to tailgate issues. The company says they are working to fix the issue, which mainly affected newer Chevy Silverados. Makes me want to sing a song about a Silverado, but GMC Sierras as well. The electric switch could short circuit if water gets into it, and this could lead to the loss of cargo in the beds of the truck. And finally, the Biden administration announces new measures to cap credit card late fees. Officials say they are capping those fees at $8, which is down from $31 on average. And they are giving farmers and ranchers more leverage in negotiating contracts with meat packers. The Biden administration has already got companies like Live Nation and Airbnb to cap their excess fees. Not enough. But that's your Wall Street wrap. I'm Bob Sellers.
Former First Lady Michelle Obama finally breaking her silence on whether she'll be replacing Joe Biden on the Democrats' ticket. Former First Lady releasing a statement to NBC News saying she is not running and is committed to helping Joe Biden and Kamala Harris secure another term. There has been growing speculation about Obama or even California Governor Gavin Newsom getting into the race as Biden's popularity seems to hit a new low every month. For more, let's bring in chief pollster and founder of the Trafalgar Group, Robert Cahaly. Also have Newsmax political analyst Mark Halperin. Welcome. Mark, you first. You tell me the nomination is Biden's, but the inter-party revolt is not waning. It's getting louder. Do you think a move could be made at convention? Maybe? Oh, I see, guys. So he can't hear me? Is that what I'm sorry. The guys are telling me that he can't hear me right now. So this is going to be a bit of a problem. If he can't hear me, then he's not going to be able to respond to the question. So why don't we just wait for Mr. Halperin to plug in his little thing and the little cord that goes into his earpiece. That's what. And well, don't worry, it's just live television. We got a little bit of time here. It's cool. Yes. Mark, are you with me, my friend? Okay,
yes, sir.
Mark, you say the nomination is going to be Joe Biden's, but the inter-party revolt is not waning as far as I can tell. It's actually getting louder among Democrats. Do you think a move could be made at convention if Biden's slide in the polls continues at this pace? What do you think?
It's a complicated question, Chris. There's no doubt that the tenor and nature of conversations I'm having with top Democrats in the last 10 days have changed dramatically. It's a combination of the consistency of the battleground state polls and the national polls, of Joe Biden's clear decline, and of an absence of a White House plan. For instance, on immigration, one of the issues that's clearly dragging him down now, the White House touted a few days ago, maybe a week and a half, that there were going to be some executive orders. Well, we haven't seen those yet, and I think that's in part because the left shrieked. The left said no executive orders. You can't beat Trump on immigration. That means that there's a lot of worry, and Democrats will tell you the summer's too late. The summer's too late. The other thing, though, Chris, that's fundamental is there's no Democratic poobah. There's no Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi or Hakeem Jeffries going to the White House and saying, Mr. President, you must step down. They're all in on him, and he's not going anywhere. So if they were rational, they might be thinking of something different. But the reality is they know he's not going anywhere. So this is all great fun and games. It's great fun speculation to read the DNC rules to see how he might be replaced. If he is alive, he plans to be the nominee, even if he's down 5 points come the summer and the fall.
Okay, now I get everything you're saying, and you're right, but again, let me just push back a little bit, because a lot of the fire that Joe Biden has been taking has not been from Republicans, has not been from conservatives like me. The information that's coming out about Joe Biden is coming from within his own party, individuals who know stuff that are getting stuff out there. I mean, I'm talking about the classified documents information, just to name a few. That there are people inside of the Democrat Party who are increasingly pushing him to get out. And you're right, he does have a whole bunch of powerful Democrats in his corner at this point because they got nobody else. But again, to my original point, those calls that Joe Biden can't win are getting louder and louder and louder inside the Democrat Party, and his poll numbers are sinking faster and faster and faster. If that is the pace coming into convention, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Look, there are pundits who are honest enough to say this looks horrible. But the reality is Joe Biden's wrong about a lot of things. You probably think he's wrong about more things than I do. He's wrong about a lot. But here's where he's not wrong. He is the strongest to beat Donald Trump. If he steps down, it'll be very difficult to stop Kamala Harris from being the nominee. She's not stronger. And these other possibilities that people talk about, the governor of Michigan, the governor of California, the governor of Pennsylvania, they're untested. In Joe Biden's view, he's, as he said in one of the few interviews he's done in the last few months, he's beaten Donald Trump. Nobody else has. So I don't believe that by the convention things will be different unless his health is significantly worse. But the notion that there are Democrats out there who say, hey, I got somebody stronger. There's nobody stronger. As weak as Joe Biden is in so many ways, he's right. There's nobody stronger.
Well, okay, well, I'm glad you said it that way because he's weak. I mean, all the polls show he's losing to President Trump. And you're right, he's been tested, and America has given him an F. He's failing on all of his tests, including the cognitive ones. What storylines are you watching for tonight? Super Tuesday voting results rolling in across various states, upsets, issues. What are you looking for as we get the totals and as we come into the aftermath tomorrow?
Well, there's some interesting individual races. I'm curious to see how Steve Garvey does in that California Senate race. And people say he can't beat Adam Schiff. I'll just be curious to see sort of where their rank order is there. And then I'm interested in the mood of the country. We'll see data tonight that will tell us, is immigration as big an issue in some of these other states as it's been in the initial early voting states? Remember, the states that have voted so far, with the possible exception of Michigan, are not the same as the other states. These states are political hothouses, right? Tons of information, campaign ads, etc. That raises the currency of things like immigration because there's so many ads. It's the most advertised topic. These states haven't seen a lot of advertising on immigration. They haven't seen the candidates talking about it. Do they care about immigration as much? I suspect they do, but let's see. Super curious about that.
Last thing I have for you is State of the Union. You know, the Democrats have gone full scorched earth. They're kicking Republicans off ballots because they don't want to face them. It's unprecedented. It's radical. And that's what the Democrats are doing. And some Republicans, some conservatives say, you know what? It's time to fight some fire with fire. Disinvite Joe Biden because he's not doing his job. Disinvite Joe Biden from giving the State of the Union. It's the least the Republicans could do in the face of all of this unprecedented incoming that they are throwing at Republicans. The Democrats are throwing at Republicans. What do you think about that strategy?
I didn't love when Nancy Pelosi ripped up the President of the United States remarks, and I wouldn't like this either. We need to be one nation. We need to be a nation that can work together across party lines. And the State of the Union is a tradition. It's a tradition that has meaning. It's a tradition that gives the president the opportunity to talk to the country, presidents of both parties. So no, I'm not in favor of anything that divides us more rather than unites us.
Mark Halperin, glad we could make the connection. Thank you, sir. Coming up, the Supreme Court unanimously ruled that President Trump is eligible for the 2024 ballot. We talked to two state attorneys general about that ruling next on Newsmax. Well, justice prevailed as the Supreme Court unanimously voted in President Trump's favor, restoring him to the 2024 presidential ballot in Colorado. Here's Trump's reaction to that ruling yesterday.
You cannot take somebody out of a race because an opponent would like to have it that way. And it has nothing to do with the fact that it's the leading candidate, whether it was the leading candidate or a candidate that was well down on the totem pole. You cannot take somebody out of a race. The voters can take the person out of the race very quickly. But a court shouldn't be doing that, and the Supreme Court saw that very well.
Joining me now is Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall. And scheduled to appear here was Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita, who led that fight, but we're struggling to make a connection with him. So I'm going to ask you, Mr. Marshall, about Rokita leading that charge in support of former President Trump's right to appear on the Colorado ballot. I can't believe we're having this discussion in America that we have to, oh yes, your opponents tried to kick you off of the ballot and you get to stay on because that's the way we do things in America. Give me your reaction to that it got all the way to the Supreme Court and the massive rebuke once it got there.
I think it was a remarkable victory, not only for President Trump, but also for the voters of our country to be able to have faith in the election process, to know that their voice can be heard. General Rokita was able to lead multiple states, including Alabama, to be able to push back on the efforts of Colorado to keep President Trump off the ballot. The reality is this was a 9-0 decision, a unanimous court that spoke very clearly, that said that there was no ability to use the 14th Amendment to be able to keep President Trump off the ballot, and most importantly, that that was not the role of a state election official in being able to do so.
Now, you penned a recent op-ed in Newsweek defending the Supreme Court's unanimous decision because the court is applying the law and not left-wingers' feelings. The Attorney General of, or the Secretary of State, I should say, of Colorado was out there saying that she should be able to throw off a quote-unquote insurrectionist. But the problem is President Trump has never been charged with insurrection, nor has he been convicted of insurrection. So Democrats want the ability to make up charges against their political rivals and have them thrown off of ballots, and we can't allow that in the United States, can we?
No, we can't. And in fact, what we know is the majority of Americans recognize that the charges against President Trump are political in nature. That President Biden can't, through his record, defeat President Trump in an election. I think it's a foregone conclusion that he'll be the nominee. And when we see election officials like that in Colorado or in the state of Maine attempt to be able to use the resources of their office to deprive their citizens of being able to vote appropriately, then we know they've gone too far. Again, 9-0 decision from this court. I think that sends a very strong message about the abuses the left will use to try to gain their agenda, and proud the court was able to stand strong and be able to support the ability of President Trump to make his case to the American people and allow them to decide who's our next president.
All right, I'm being told that we have made a connection with Attorney General Rokita, so I want to get his sense of things. First off, comment on the victory, the 9-0 victory, sir. The Supreme Court, a fight that you led. What is your reaction?
You know, I'm really grateful for Alabama, Steve Marshall, for joining us in this effort as well. You know, the fact of the matter, Steve and I and many of your attorneys general are in court every week stopping the overreach of the federal government. But there are some times, some rare instances when our founders provided for Congress to take the lead, and deciding what an insurrection is and deciding whether or not a president or vice presidential candidate can be on the ballot is one of those rare times. And so that's what we hammered on in our brief, and I'm pleased that the court really focused on it and made it the foundation of its opinion. And yes, it was 9-0. And I remember calling it on Newsmax a few months ago, and my staff saying, sir, why did you do that? Why would you ever call something 9-0? Because it's happened so rarely. But if you think about it, this was so obvious and so full of Hoosier common sense. I really don't think it could have been anything but 9-0.
Well, AG Rokita, I want to ask you one more question before we wrap this up. It's, of course, Super Tuesday, and we've got people out there heading out of the polls. What are you looking for? What storylines are you looking for as the folks are voting today?
Well, you know, wherever I go in Indiana, and you can tell I'm in the car right now, traveling the state, and I think Hoosiers are a lot like most Americans, and they want their country back, and they see time and time again it being taken away from them through the weaponization of government, whether it's the Trump examples or even examples where AGs are being targeted with their professional law licenses because you can't get them at the ballot box. And so I think what's going to happen after Super Tuesday is what's going to happen in the fall, and it's going to be a landslide for President Trump.
AG Marshall, state of Alabama is voting today. What are you watching?
Yeah, I think Alabamans are voting with their pocketbooks. They are saying we're tired of the inflation. They want to be able to see their borders secure and ultimately their city safe. And I think one of the things that we will see as a result of Alabama's votes today is Alabama standing strong for conservative values, understanding that that's the way to rectify the problems we're seeing in our country. And I think we plan on being able to play a large part in restoring President Trump to the presidency.
Attorneys General Steve Marshall and Todd Rokita. Gentlemen, thank you for the time. Appreciate it. Still ahead, when confronted with facts, Mayor Pete Buttigieg flounders. That's up next on Newsmax. Glad you made it back, everybody. CNBC anchor Joe Kernan calling out the Biden regime's multiple failures, leaving Mayor Pete just floundering when he was hit with the cold, hard facts. Watch.
Every time we hear those talking points that suddenly it was Republicans who ruined the border, that's why people get so frustrated. We know what President Biden said about inviting people in. We know that he got rid of all the things that were keeping the border closed that President Trump had put in. We know that he got rid of all those. So when you say it's not his fault,
that's literally not true.
No, that literally is precisely what happened. Anything that was President Trump was done away with reflexively and no thought given to it by Democrats, the Biden regime when they came in. Wow. I can't believe they look at the camera and actually say that's not true. Everybody saw it. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris does her best to string together a coherent sentence. Take a listen.
I know that one of the best ways we're going to keep our firefighters safe is to have more firefighters, to be able to work on the job with you, to be able to do the work that is about putting the resources into what the communities need.
And if you get more firefighters to put out fires, there will be fewer fires that firefighters will fight to put out. Biden is polling so poorly that even CNN has no choice but to call it out. Watch.
Those under 30. Biden has a 12-point advantage in this poll. Well, it was twice that in the 2020 election. Among female voters, Biden is tied with Trump in this New York Times poll this weekend. He had a 15-point advantage. You see with black voters, he's got a 43-point advantage. That's substantial, except in the 2020 election, it was a 75-point advantage. And then if you look at non-white voters without a college degree, you see he's got a 6-point advantage over Trump, but that was a 46-point advantage in 2020.
And now President Trump is leading among liberty-loving Latinos out there. If you're a left-wing extremist and you've lost CNN, yikes. It's going to wrap up this edition of the Chris Salcedo Show. Join us again tomorrow, 4 o'clock Eastern. That's where we're going to break down all the day's big news stories for you and give you our conservative opinion on those stories. Carl Higbee Frontline, they are up next. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow on Newsmax.
All right, good evening. Welcome to Frontline. It's 5 o'clock here on the East Coast. Here are the top 5 stories we don't want you to miss. All right, Super Tuesday. It's finally here. So is this finally the end of the blue brick road for sort of Republican candidate Nikki Haley? Tonight, 854 Republican delegates are at stake across 16 states and 1 territory, obviously. With the first polls closing in just under 2 hours, we're going to be covering that all night for you right here with my first guest today, actually, too. This, as Arizona Senator Kristen Sinema says she won't run again, which is good because I don't think anyone in Arizona actually would vote for her again.
I believe in my approach, but it's not what America wants right now. I will leave the Senate at the end of this year.
Okay, bye-bye. And down goes yet another warmongering deep state operative. America's 3rd highest-ranking diplomat, Victoria Nuland, has resigned. As a reminder, Nuland is married to Washington Post reporter Robert Kagan, who has made light of assassinating President Trump. Another good riddance. Congress also has subpoenaed former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo to testify this May about his COVID-19 nursing home policies. Looks like it may be accountability time, I hope. And Instagram and Facebook suddenly just went down for hours in the U.S. Ironically enough, all those platforms that said Twitter would fail, well, they used Twitter to notify their user base that they were down. Funny how Mark Zuckerberg's platform coincidentally went down on Super Tuesday. Isn't that just super interesting? But first, finally, it's Super Tuesday. Ladies and gentlemen, get your ballots in. Let's do this. All right, today is Super Tuesday. Most of you know what that is and what's going on because many of you live in one of the 16 states that are voting today. But for those who don't, Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Iowa, Maine, Massachusetts, Minnesota, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Vermont, and Virginia all go to the polls today for both Democrat and Republican primaries. Now, if you live in one of those states and you haven't gotten to the polls yet, please actually go, please vote. Voting is a sacred right that billions of people in this world will never have. Think about that. Please go vote for who you feel would best serve the country's interest. That said, if you don't vote, also don't complain about the results for the next 2 years. I'm going to get to Trump's landslide or likely landslide over Haley in just a minute here, but Biden, as running as the incumbent, he's literally running against nobody in 7 states. And by nobody, I mean there's literally a line. Essentially anyone but Biden. It's an uncommitted line. Now, this happened in Michigan. It got 13%. That's more than 100,000 people got up and actively went to the polls to vote against Joe Biden, who they knew was going to probably win their primary anyway. But they made the point to vote against him over an issue that's not even in the top 5 of the interests of the rest of the country in the general election. And that's his U.S. support for Israel. Think about that. Kind of scary. Look, Joe Biden's going to lock up the nomination no matter what. He's the incumbent. And as I've been saying forever, he's either going to step aside or be pushed aside post-convention so the Democratic Party, ironically enough, will circumvent democracy to install what they want and who they want, and then just going to give the middle finger to the voters. And the same party screaming in our faces about saving democracy aren't going to have anything to do with it. But I'm happy to sit back and watch their own party burn everything to the ground. The Republican primary today, though, on the other hand, I don't want to say it's competitive because it's really not at all, but at least people are voting for another human and not a blank space. Now, you need 2,429 delegates to lock up the nomination. As of today, as you can see, coming in a strong blade of grass here, Nikki Haley with a whopping 43 total delegates to Donald Trump's 273. We've only had 331 up for grabs to date. But it didn't stop her yesterday from explaining to the ever-dwindling crowd of donors and people in that room how she's going to pull a rabbit out of a hat.
We don't ever want some elected official in a state or anybody else saying who can and can't be on a ballot. This is America. This is America. Look, I'll defeat Donald Trump fair and square, but I want him on that ballot.
Okay. Going into today, she was down by like 60 or 70% in her matchup to Trump in more than 3 states, folks. I'm not sure where she's getting this confidence, but fake it till you make it, I guess. Places like California, and let me tell you, if you're a Republican in California, you are a real Republican because you're swimming in a deep blue sea over there. Now, Kevin McCarthy not included there, but Haley is nearly at a statistical 0 in California. Add that into Texas, where we know that is Trump country, and that alone doubles Trump delegate votes with just those 2 states. You see why I'm like a bit confused why Nikki Haley is still here at all? Look, Donald Trump can't technically not lock up the nomination tonight, even if he wins all 865 delegates from every single state and every single district, which he's likely going to come really close to doing that, by the way, but he will still be about 200, give or take, shy of the official win. However, this will all but guarantee, even to the most stubborn Nikki Haley supporters and herself, that she has absolutely no path to victory. It's just not mathematically possible for her to win at that point. And we can all get back to running against Joe Biden and not wasting a bunch of money on sideshows and long shots. But here's something that needs to be considered. Look, stay with me, folks. We do need these Nikki Haley supporters to come back and vote for Donald Trump in the general. So, look, I know Nikki Haley tried every dirty trick in the book. I wasn't particularly happy about it, and she got nowhere with it. But this party, we do need those people to come back out and vote for Donald Trump. It's just a math thing, folks. I don't care if you like it or not. I know a lot of people that voted for her were Democrats, and we're not going to win any of those people anyway. That was totally part of her campaign strategy. The only reason these people voted for Nikki was because they have some weird Trump derangement syndrome. But the actual salvageable Republicans that haven't lost their mind, like the Lincoln Project, for me, it's clear. They got to get behind the Republicans' nominee. After all, Nikki Haley did commit to that before backing away from it in another interview. I know what this is going to take, folks. Look, I have members of my family that wanted Nikki Haley to be the thing. I know it's a little bit different at dinner tables sometimes, but I'm going to spike the football on them tonight, maybe a little bit over breakfast tomorrow. But after that, we need to come back together. All right? If that can happen, if every Republican can get back on board, the next 7 months is just going to be time to sit back and have a martini while the Democrats continue to implode and burn the country to the ground, literally. It will be a foregone conclusion that Trump will see another term. And I know this because of the excitement of voters. Look, it was a lot easier for people to vote for Joe Biden in 2020, as misguided as it was, when gas was $2 a gallon and you could get a 2% mortgage, and all you heard was Biden promising that he was going to make everything better. It's not better. In fact, it's a lot worse. So Biden can't say he's going to make it better because no one will believe him. Trump, on the other hand, can say, hey, you want to bring back $2 a gallon gas? Might come with a few mean tweets, but I'll do it. Americans are like, it doesn't sound so bad right now. They're a lot more excited about Trump nationwide, and you saw this in the last primary in South Carolina. Look, Biden altered the tradition and made South Carolina the first primary for his party. He only got 51,000 people to turn out and vote for him. Now, in the Republican primary, though, 756,000 turned out to vote. 14 times more people voted for in the Republican primary, much of which went to Donald Trump. Look, I said it last night, Donald Trump won the general election yesterday after that Supreme Court ruling. But with numbers like that, and the fact that Trump is leading Biden in literally every state that is voting today, by the way, that's when it comes to the general matchup. It's time for Republicans to get together and make America great again. Rick Santorum, senior political analyst and former Pennsylvania senator, and Thomas Lilly, host of America Right Now. Gentlemen, both of you are going to be covering this all night tonight. So, Senator, what do you make of this matchup? 16 states. Does Donald Trump take them all, or are a few sprinkled around to Nikki Haley?
I don't see anywhere where Nikki Haley is certainly favored to win. Vermont is my outside. If everything happens to fall right, she might come close. She's got the governor up there campaigning. He's a very popular governor. She had a rally in Burlington the other day with like 400 people. That alone might win you the Republican nomination in Vermont. So I'm holding. You can hold out an outside chance for that. But other than that, it's going to be a big night for Donald Trump.
Yeah. Tom, take a listen to what Biden had to say this morning, though.
What's your message to Democrats who are concerned about your poll numbers? My poll numbers, the last 5 polls you guys don't report. I'm winning 5 in a row.
And they say the man doesn't need a cognitive test. He's winning in the last 5 polls.
I don't know. I don't know what he's. I don't know what he's talking about. Look, an incumbent president should get about 90% plus in a primary, and that's one of the things that I'm looking at is, how many of those voters are going to come out and they're going to vote in those 9 states where you can vote uncommitted or none of the above. How much does none of the above pull in a state like Minnesota, where you have a fairly large Muslim population? We're going to see a protest vote like we saw in Michigan.
13%.
Yeah, with 13% is nothing to sneeze at. So what is he going to be able to pull in these states? Is there going to be are you going to see a lot of none of the above? And I think one of the things that we're going to look at tonight is that enthusiasm deficit.
Right.
Because and this is where actually I think Nikki Haley really sort of helped in some cases, because it's going to force the Republicans to come out. I think you're going to see bigger numbers, and I think it's really going to scare the heck out of the Democrats.
Yeah, I think that actually, I'll be fair. I'll give her credit that I think she did help drive turnout, which is good. I kind of like primaries. We knew this one was over probably before it started, but
surprisingly so, actually.
How do we get all the people, or at least a good chunk of the people that voted for Nikki Haley, to come back and say, like, all right, let's make America great again?
Well, it starts tonight. The president has to go out there and deliver a message focused on the general election, just what he basically did in Iowa and South Carolina, not New Hampshire, and focus on
bringing this party together, making Joe Biden the enemy, not focused on Nikki Haley or, grievances from what she may have said or done. That doesn't matter.
Right.
There is a chance. I think that Trump has a tremendous opportunity now, particularly since the Supreme Court case. I think that really has helped him, launched him. Yeah. It shows how far off these left-wing attacks have been against him legally. Yeah. And I think this is a moment for him tonight. The problem is, I'm told he's not going to talk until maybe very late tonight. So he may miss the window to really reach a lot of people.
No, the senator is absolutely right. Now is an opportunity for the former president to go and grab those Nikki Haley voters and say, it's up to him to say to them, this is the reason why you should come back into the fold. You should vote for me. Because I got to tell you, Carl, you have a socialist left-wing political infrastructure that involves public employees unions from coast to coast, big tech, the media, the higher education complex, and they are not going to go down quietly. And it's going to be incredibly important for the former president as the head of the party to pull everybody together here so that Republicans can win.
I got 30 seconds left. Both sides are set up to believe some shenanigans happened in this next election, no matter what happens. Both sides are being set up for that. How do we not have that? How do we avert any type of altercations and crisis going into this next election?
I think you saw it in the last election cycle. What I saw is unprecedented numbers of volunteers at the polling places.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the ways you make sure that bad things don't happen is you have eyeballs on the situation. And I would just say to all those folks who are concerned about election integrity, be part of the solution. Yeah. Everybody can volunteer at your local precinct. You can sign up. You can be there. You can make sure that this thing is run well. You can't cheat in the light. It's very, very hard to do.
And unlike in 2020, Trump himself, the campaign, the Republican National Committee have to have a ballot security initiative unlike anything that we've ever seen before.
Yeah, and Laura Trump was actually very vocal about doing that this year, and I hope she takes a bigger role. Rick Santorum, Tom Basili, we'll see you all night tonight.
You will.
All right. Coming up, the Biden administration filing an emergency request to the Supreme Court to now block a Texas immigration law allowing police to arrest illegal migrants at the border. We're going to discuss that garbage when we come back. All right, so you remember yesterday we told you that an appellate court was going to allow Texas and their state officials to enforce immigration laws on their own. However, after the show late last night, the Supreme Court stayed that order and that ruling, again, leaving the state officials handcuffed with Federal Border Patrol under the direction from Biden not to do anything. It's insane. The law in Texas, the Senate Bill 4, which would allow Texas law enforcement officers to detain and deport undocumented immigrants who cross the border, will be put on ice until at least, March 13th. And now I take issue with the Supreme Court on this one. How can they stop Texas from making and enforcing their own laws, specifically of the absence of the federal government's willingness to do their constitutional duty at the border? Also in the ruling, I feel like, look, I'm not a Supreme Court justice. I feel like they should have forced the Biden administration to actually do their job, like maybe make that contingent upon this thing. I have a lot of respect for the high court, whether I agree or disagree with it. But if I was a betting man, just throwing this out there, was this a compromise to get to that 9-0 decision in Trump's favor yesterday? Don't know. Former acting Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Chad Wolf, and immigration attorney, Raul Manchanda. All right, Raul, let's start with you on this, being the immigration attorney. There is a significant number of people obviously coming across illegally. We would like to have them come in legally, but the bigger problem is you have no mechanism to stop this because the White House not doing its job, and now Texas can't do it in its absence.
You're absolutely correct, and it's actually kind of shocking that Judge Alito was the one who kind of put it on ice for a little while, because he's actually one of the most conservative judges on the Supreme Court. But the reality is it's a good thing that Texas is doing this, because they're setting an example for the rest of the country that this is not okay. Mayorkas is sort of letting entire millions of people coming in of military age. It's very hard to vet these people. And it's also putting people who are waiting in line for immigration the proper way, right. Putting them at the back of the line and then rewarding these people who are breaking the law. So Governor Abbott is doing the right thing here. He's taking the bulls by the horns. And it's not shocking that Alito did put it on ice, because that's really what they're supposed to do, take it and deliberate on it to show that they're at least going to think about it.
Right.
But it was a little shocking that Alito took the lead on that.
Yeah, no, it's shocking to me. But, you know, Chad, the bigger problem here is, you know, you would think that the Supreme Court would tie some sort of enforcement for the federal arm. I mean, at the end of 2023, over 4,000 migrants crossed the border a day in Eagle Pass. Yeah. Now, you fast forward to today, when they secured it, Greg Abbott put up razor wire and Connex boxes. They saw among the lowest, they're like, it's 3 to 350 a day. I mean, they cut it down by 90%, and the ones that are getting through are now being detained. And they're saying, well, walls don't work, we can't do that. And there's got to be some middle ground here.
Well, I think that's right. Look, this is unprecedented action that Governor Abbott's having to take because the federal government is really abdicating their responsibility along that border. So you're going to see it tied up in courts. You're going to see it go all the way to the Supreme Court. And obviously, this is a temporary hold until they can really talk about the merits of the case. But Governor Abbott should never be put in this position to having to advocate for a law, sign a law into his books that says he now has to do what the federal government should be doing. So it's, you know, look, it's unfortunate we're at this spot in this point in time. But if the federal government's not going to do their job, then the governor there in the state of Texas needs to step up, and that's what he's doing.
Well, Raul, also, Joe Biden, the administration literally admitted to transporting illegal migrants on secret U.S. flights. And lawyers for the Department of Homeland Security are refusing to tell us anything about these flights. They don't want to reveal the locations. They're saying it could create national security vulnerabilities. I'm sorry. What is going on with this?
Yeah, literally flying in national security threats to the tune of 320,000 people. Yeah, it's unbelievable to me what rationale this could possibly have for the United States other than to literally infiltrate this country, undo all of the good things that my fellow guest Chad Wolf, who's an amazing Homeland Security director under Donald Trump, what they did, you know, and Tom Homan, they did a great job and they cleaned it up and they actually reestablished our borders. And this is just being undone by these people, and it's just what is happening. I mean, these people are, some of them are military age, from People's Republic of China. What are they doing? You know, what are they coming here for? You know, Syria. So it's a little scary that they're going to embed themselves in our cities. You know, we don't know where the hell they are. We don't know what they're doing. They haven't been vetted. They don't come back to their court hearings when they get a notice here, and they've infiltrated the system. I think the FBI just talked about how there's assassins roaming around this country right now. So I'm not really sure what's going on. Yeah. I'm very, very confused. And it's also really hurting Americans.
I agree.
Or immigrants that are waiting in line right
now. Chad, I want to get you in here for the last 20 seconds. What's your take on these flights?
Well, it's important to remember this is the parole program that the Biden administration put in place. So in addition to the millions of folks coming across that southern border, they are now flying migrants into the country. And what they said to the American people was, if we put this parole program in place, it's going to alleviate the surge along the border, along the land border in the ports of entry. And that just hasn't been the case, right? You've seen the numbers just skyrocket. So, again, it's a failed strategy that they have put in place.
Yeah. And it's the same people want to take away my gas stove, but they're using 747s to fly in 300,000. It's unbelievable. Chad Wolf, Raul Manchando, appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, an iconic photo that symbolizes the end of World War II was almost the latest victim of this woke garbage. That and more in our Culture Clash. Rima Ann Nelson, this woman, the Assistant Undersecretary of the Veterans Affairs Office, sent out a memorandum demanding the removal of the iconic VJ Day Times Square photo from all VA facilities. This picture right here. She claimed that this photo, which symbolized the end of World War II, represents a non-consensual act. I mean, give me a break, lady. Adding that removing it's necessary in order to promote a culture of inclusivity and awareness. Lady, there are nearly 20 veterans a day committing suicide. Almost 10% increases in homeless since last year. And let's not forget, the military missed their 2023 recruiting goals by over 40,000 people. Are you seriously going to tell me that this is your biggest concern? And the outcry caused the secretary, Dennis Madonu, of the VA to walk back the memo in a few hours, stating, quote, "This image is not banned from VA facilities and we will keep it in VA facilities." We also reached out to the VA when this whole thing happened. It blew my mind. And it's our understanding from their and I'll be fair, their cooperative press office, that memo should never have been sent out in the first place. Who's running the show over there? Secretary Robert Wilkie, Under Secretary of Defense and former Secretary of Veterans Affairs, and Rob O'Neill, retired Senior Chief Petty Officer, the man who killed bin Laden. All right, so Secretary Wilkie, in your VA, this never would have happened. What do you, like, how did this happen? Like, who's in charge of over there?
Well, remember, Carl, who is running this? Remember, we have a Secretary of VA who spent the last 3 years ripping Abraham Lincoln's image and words off every VA hospital and VA cemetery. The only reason he acted today is not because of the pressure. It's because it's an election year and he's trying to cover for all the woke nonsense perpetrated by this administration. Remember what this secretary's 4 priorities are: DEI, transgender rights, union prerogative, and remote work. As you have said on many occasions, there's one word missing from those priorities, and it's veterans. And while he's doing this, Veterans' Choice has been killed. Remember, under President Trump, over half of the veterans on the rolls went into the private sector.
Right.
This administration has killed it. It's promoted union rights, and the 8,000 people Trump fired, they brought back with back pay.
It's so dumb. Rob, what do you make of this?
Well, if I was working at the VA, my concern wouldn't be with the pictures in the lobby. It'd be with the combat veterans committing suicide in the parking lot, which happens because of all this nonsense. You know, it's everything that this government runs. You start with the bureaucracy and all this stuff, and they creep this woke stuff in there by saying, well, we need everyone just to feel welcome. And what they mean by everyone feel welcome is boys should be ashamed of their sex, girls should be ashamed of their femininity, America should be ashamed of its past, the West should hate itself. That's basically what they mean by everyone feel welcome. It's going to be one person who might be offended, and what can I do to prove what a virtuous signaler I am? It's sad to see that the priority is way out of whack. And like anything in most government, this nonsense doesn't belong there. They should be concentrating on what the job is, and the VA should be helping veterans, not worried about who's offended by a picture of someone that's kissing a girl because he's happy he doesn't need to go back to the Pacific to fight the Japanese anymore because the war's over because we dropped 2 atom bombs on a country and won a war the way it should be.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, Mr. Secretary, this is another thing, too, and it goes back to America's foreign policy and weakness abroad. AOC, she's regretting her stance on protesters. Listen to this.
You refuse to call it a genocide in front of everybody.
I need you to understand.
It's not okay that there's a genocide happening. You're not actively against it.
You're lying.
If you can't call it a genocide, then obviously we're not lying.
Sir, she's obviously, she previously stated that, quote, the whole point of protesting is to make people uncomfortable. Well, now these pro-Hamas people are chasing her down because the Democratic Party is eating itself based on our foreign policy.
Well, you just hit it. The left eventually eats its own, and it is funny with this congresswoman. I mean, she and her friends just spent a vacation in Cuba. What's interesting to me is that Ocasio-Cortez says nothing about Bashar Assad killing 800,000 Muslims or the Houthis killing 400,000. It's only when Jews are involved. It's plain old-fashioned Jew hatred. She is the voice of the new Democratic Party, and I think it's fitting in one way that she gets a taste of her own medicine.
Yeah, no. And Rob, you know, bring that threat domestically. We're looking, you know, obviously these people make stupid laws, but real quick, the Google founder admitted that Gemini, the image of making George Washington black, was an error. But I'm like, these are the radicals that are programming technology that is running freely and awry right now.
The good thing about this, Carl, is that it shows us what's happening behind the scenes with the programmers, because artificial intelligence is not biased or racist, but the programmers are. And if they're doing stuff like that, making George Washington black, making Vikings Asian, someone somewhere that's, you know, smarter than me, granted, that can write code, made sure that something, they're trying to erase history, and that's what they do. They don't like the way history is written. They don't like where they are now, and that's just how they're going to do it.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Well, Secretary Robert Wilkie and Rob O'Neill, congratulations on the new child, my man.
Thanks, Carl.
All right, brother. Appreciate it. All right, well, Super Tuesday, 16 states voting. Let's check in quickly with a correspondent, John Glasgow. John, what do you got on this?
Hey, Carl. Yeah, you're looking right here behind me. This is one of the on-the-spot voting centers here in the state of Colorado. This is right here in Denver. The polls close at 7 o'clock Mountain Time, so we've got a couple more hours yet here where voters can come and cast their ballot. But it's a little quiet in here, and the reason for that is the mail-in ballots. These were mailed out to voters here last month, and ultimately, they could have decided who they voted for prior to the SCOTUS decision and prior to Super Tuesday. So that's why we're seeing it a little bit quiet here today. Now, I just got an update here from the elected officials. They told me that 1.5 million people have cast a ballot here in the state, and about 600,000 of those are Republicans. Now, Colorado's gone blue over the last two elections. President Biden beat Trump in 2020, but this year could be a little different. Watch this.
You know, the immigration thing is out of control, and I think once he gets in the first day, he'll put a stop to all that. And that's one of our biggest issues, I think, really, is all of that. And the reason, I don't know, you can call it conspiracy, whatever, but I think Biden just didn't give a darn.
So we're watching to see how many votes former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley picks up in the state. She was here last week campaigning ahead of Super Tuesday. There's a lot of issues on the table here in Colorado. Denver is a sanctuary city facing budget issues over an influx of migrants arriving to the city. And some suburban areas in Colorado are refusing to become sanctuary cities to ease the burden. So not only that, Colorado's Secretary of State, Jenna Griswold, pushed to have Trump thrown off the ballot. Supreme Court overturned that yesterday, as you've been talking about. Now, we also pressed Griswold today. She was at a news conference here in Denver where she said she still disagrees with the SCOTUS decision. Watch.
To be very clear to Newsmax, no elected official made any decision in this case. This case was filed by 6 Republican and unaffiliated voters in state court here in Colorado. The initial court had a 5-day hearing, including witnesses and evidence presented. It then went to the entire Colorado Supreme Court and then to the United States Supreme Court. So yes, I do believe the trial was fair, and the determination is what the determination is, which was issued by the United States Supreme Court yesterday.
So the actual question there, Carl, to the secretary was whether or not she agreed with the decision and what she thought. She didn't disagree with the decision, but she went on and told us that. We're watching also the Democratic primary. There's an uncommitted option. So we saw in Michigan what happened there out of the protest of the Gaza war. We could possibly see that with President Biden, his handling of the issues over there, whether or not Coloradans actually feel the same way as a lot of the people in Michigan. Send it back to you.
All right. Have fun over there, Glasgow. All right, coming up, groundbreaking news, folks. The director of Biden's ATF knows nothing about guns. Shocker, I know. That and more at our 2A Tuesday next.
Carl Higbee Frontline is brought to you by Birch Gold Group. Go to birchgold.com/newsmax.
If you're not careful where you put your savings, the government can essentially rob you in plain sight. Former Fed Chairman Alan Greenspan warned us when he said, deficit spending is simply a scheme for the confiscation of wealth. He's right. Deficit spending can cause inflation, which eats away at your savings, even if you don't see it at first. Is there a solution? Yes. Greenspan thought so when he said gold stands in the way of this insidious process. This is where Birch Gold Group comes in. You see, Greenspan understood that true wealth preservation can come from physical assets, like gold. We've helped Americans diversify their IRA or 401k into gold for over 20 years. To get a free info kit from Birch Gold, text Newsmax to 989898 now. This is our gift to you. There's no obligation and nothing to buy. Just free info to help you diversify your hard-earned savings. So text Newsmax to 989898 right now.
My mental health was much better, but I struggled with uncontrollable movements called TD, tardive dyskinesia. TD can be caused by some mental health meds.
And it's unlikely to improve without treatment. I felt like my movements were in the spotlight.
#1 prescribed Ingrezza is the only TD treatment for adults that's always one pill once daily. Ingrezza 80 milligram is proven to reduce TD movements in 7 out of 10 people. People taking Ingrezza can stay on most mental health meds. Ingrezza can cause depression, suicidal thoughts, or actions in patients with Huntington's disease. Pay close attention to and call your doctor if you become depressed, have sudden changes in mood, behaviors, feelings, or have thoughts of suicide. Don't take Ingrezza if you're allergic to its ingredients. Ingrezza may cause serious side effects, including angioedema, potential heart rhythm problems, and abnormal movements. Report fevers, stiff muscles, or problems thinking, as these may be life-threatening. Sleepiness is the most common side effect.
It's nice. People focus more on me.
Ask your doctor about #1 prescribed once daily Ingrezza.
I am Elmer Heinrich. Our company sells an incredible nutritional supplement called Immuno 150. Now it contains 70 minerals and 80 additional nutrients. I suggest you try Immuno 150 if you want a chance to be in good health and feel good when you're 89 years old like me with no arthritis, no heart problems, no diabetes or high blood pressure, dementia, or aches or pains of any kind. Now, Immuno 150 contains 8 times more minerals than the average food. Our foods lack minerals, so we lack minerals. No wonder the world is sick. Now look at the 2 videos on our website. You will see Immuno 150 is a concise and complete, no-nonsense, no-hype product. So place your order online or call 888-316-2224. That's 888-316-2224.
Have you noticed more bruising as you age? You're not alone. Now you can help improve the appearance of bruises with Dermen Moisturizing Bruise Formula. Help your bruised skin. Find Dermen Moisturizing Bruise Formula now in the first aid aisle.
So that's the frame. I can't get this one apart. Simply attach that on.
I just abolished the ATF, folks. The policy directors of Joe Biden's ATF, the Bureau of Tobacco and Firearms and Alcohol, not shockingly at all, they know nothing about firearms. They just proved it on CBS. He couldn't even disassemble a pistol into 2 pieces. And then once he finally did get it apart, he couldn't put it back together. It gets worse.
These look exactly alike, right? Mm-hmm. I defy, one of them, everybody would agree is a short-barreled rifle because it's sold in 1 piece. The other one's the exact same thing, but it's sold in 2 pieces. So people are claiming, no, that's a pistol brace. The 2 weapons are designed to be fired from the shoulder, identically. They for all intents and purposes.
They look the same.
Right?
He doesn't even know what he's Those are both pistol braces. This is unbelievable. Cam Edwards, editor at Bearing Arms and host of the fantastic podcast Bearing Arms. And Peter Forcelli, did I get that right?
Forcelli.
No, Forcelli, retired ATF Deputy Assistant Director. All right, so, Peter, I'm going to ask you, you were at the ATF. Is this just something like, do people there just not know guns? Is it not a gun culture? Because, like, when I think the type of people that would apply to the ATF, I would be like, yes, this is the same clientele that works behind the counter at Bass Pro Shops, Guns Part.
Yeah, well, truthfully, first, let me just say I'm honored to be here, and thanks for having me, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Yeah, look, I worked for the ATF for 20 years, and the agents that I work with took great pride in going after some really violent people. What's going on at ATF now is perplexing to me. The director currently is a bit of an activist. He's taking his marching orders from the office of the White House, the gun czar's office, a guy named Will Cox. And look, full disclosure, the agent who was depicted trying to disassemble that Glock and reassemble it worked for me in Yuma. He was a good field agent, did some good undercover work. I'm a little disappointed to see him having a struggle with that gun. But right now, ATF's in a bad place because the agents don't believe in the mission. They don't want to be going after parts. They don't want to be knocking on doors to go after parts.
The rank and file guys.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, for the first time in my knowledge, they're having a retention issue where agents are leaving to go to other agencies, where in the past, we routinely picked up people from Secret Service, the Marshal Service, that wanted to come and be part of the mission to go after violent criminals. It's troubling.
That's great. I mean, but Cam, here's the problem. This guy is saying that, like, see how dangerous one is, but they're they both have pistol braces. The guy couldn't disassemble weapons. But then they go on. He didn't know what the difference between a magazine and a clip. He didn't know any of this stuff. But They're the ones making laws, okay, not rules, laws that Congress is empowered to make. They've gotten smacked down a half a dozen times by the Supreme Court, but yet they can turn you and I into a felon overnight.
Yeah, and this is the problem. I mean, I think you got to remember who the audience for this interview was, right? And it wasn't necessarily gun owners or Second Amendment activists. This was designed for, you know, Americans who don't know much about firearms. So they're not going to pick up on the ignorance that was on display when Steve Dettelbach was talking on CBS News. But you're absolutely right. You know, Dettelbach was Biden's second choice to run the ATF. The first one is David Chipman, a gun control activist who was working for Giffords when he was nominated.
Who couldn't define an AR, by the way.
Exactly right. He was rejected by the Senate. Dettelbach was Biden's second choice because Dettelbach didn't have the gun control activism record, but he still had the same anti-gun viewpoints. And since he's been at the ATF, we have seen this government agency basically turned into a gun control group with law enforcement powers.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad to hear, you know, Peter say that this is not what these field agents signed up for. Because I don't think it's what the American taxpayers should be paying for either.
Yeah, so Peter, on that, and you know, obviously, look, there's some good men and women agents working there. It's just this top cover, these political appointees there are pushing these policies. How do you, like, how are they, you know, passing this down to agents and say, go enforce this new rule that made me, you know, a gun I bought legally yesterday, you are now a felon for possessing today. How are people coping with that at the ATF?
Well, like I said before, they're struggling. People are leaving. And look, most agents are trying to go out there and do what they did in the past, which is to go after people who are using guns to hurt other people. Most agents that I know, 99%, are absolutely pro-Second Amendment. And in fact, I only met 2 agents in my career who I would describe as anti-gun. And you mentioned one, David Chipman. There was another gentleman, Mr. Jones, who left and he's a college professor somewhere. So most agents believe regulation should not be driving the day. It should be Congress passing laws that we then go out and enforce. Otherwise, you're dealing with flavor of the day law enforcement. And I'd say in this particular administration, activism, which is troubling.
Peter, I appreciate you coming on. I think they should abolish the whole department, but you're already out, so that's cool. Cam, Peter, appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, trouble in paradise for Fani Willis and Nathan Wade as brand new. There is more coming out about these people. Another witness could be called to testify in our threat assessment next. Today's threat assessment: when those tasked with upholding the law and ethics don't feel they're bound by the law and ethics. As we await this big ruling in Georgia on the misconduct claims against Fulton County DA Fani Willis, this story just got a lot more interesting. I know, it's amazing. It just keeps getting worse for these two. Get ready for this. Although evidence is technically closed for submission, a brand new witness, a prosecutor in another office, if the judge allows it, could testify that Nathan Wade's former business partner, Terrence Bradley, remember that guy who was text messages, blew this whole thing up, and he was on stage, he was like, oh, snap. Whether or not he told a different story, and Fani Willis told a different story to the court than the reality of what they actually knew. Now, according to court papers filed on Monday by Trump's co-defendant, they claim that Cobb County, Georgia prosecutor Cindy Lee Yeager overheard a call between Fani Willis and Terrence Bradley where she allegedly was warned to stay quiet about the affair. I mean, is that witness tampering? It's got to be something. The filing saying, quote, Ms. Yeager heard District Attorney Willis tell Mr. Bradley, they're coming after us. You don't need to talk to them about anything about us. But wasn't Terrence Bradley the one who kept insisting he didn't recall anything?
Never witnessed anything. So, you know, it was speculation. I can't tell you anything specific, if that's what you're asking.
You can't tell me anything specific as to why you speculated about that?
No, this was however many years ago. I mean, I don't recall, but no, I don't.
Well, snippety dip, that doesn't seem to be true. I mean, does being under oath mean anything to anyone, especially other attorneys, let alone the DA? Fani, you done, lady. Attorney Mahet Cook and criminal defense attorney Andrew Cherkowski. All right, so look, Mahet, this is like you were saying before, this is like a reality show.
It is. I'm fine. I look like it's the housewives of Fulton County. We are continuing to see lie after lie after lie. And look, at the end of the day, Democrats are being held to a different standard than Republicans. Can you imagine if this was a Republican DA going after Hunter Biden?
Alina Habba.
There you go.
You imagine that.
It would be case closed. Why are we continuing to wait? Why are we continuing to see justice implode? We are going after the GOP contender, and we continue to see a lawfare in our justice system. Fani should be disqualified. She should step down immediately. Criminal perjury, lying under oath, witness tampering, throw the book at her. I'm embarrassed she's an attorney.
Well, how is she not put in front of a grand jury already?
Well, it takes time to get through this, and we got to wait for the judge's decision on this. I think that there are signs that it's going to be favorable to Trump and the other co-defendants. I think that the judge would have come down with the decision very quickly. I think the 2-week delay that he put on the books was probably to get his ruling in order. But now this new evidence that's coming forward, I think that the judge will call for additional testimony if he thinks that it'll help his ruling. But if he was already inclined to disqualify Fani Willis, it might be enough already, and he might have his decision made. He might not need that additional testimony.
Who would put this Fani Willis in front of a grand jury for, perjury or whatever it may be?
Well, it would have to be a Georgia state prosecutor of some sort. I mean, there could be paths to her losing her law license if the bar in Georgia had a problem with it. I think that's a very likely path. There is even potential that there could be a federal investigation into it.
Yeah. Well, heck, the defense attorney, Ashley Merchant, one of Trump's lawyers, has been subpoenaed to appear before a Georgia State Senate committee hearing tomorrow. Now, keep in mind, Georgia is held majority by a Republican Party, by a big majority. So it should be pretty friendly. But, the real popcorn, this is going to be televised. I mean, how bad is this going to get for Fani?
It's continuing to just self-destruct. And at the end of the day, Fani needs to just step out. This would be the perfect opportunity to say, I made a mistake, I lied, and get out of the way of the Republican Party. But she has no hubris, Carl. She's going to continue to lie. She's going to continue to hide. And this judge needs to throw the book at her. And the Senate needs to just grill her. We are so done with liars. We are so over this Democrat Party of liberal elitists that think that they're better than the rule of law.
Yeah, well, Andrew, Fani Willis went on to stand. Look, I've been in court, I've been deposed, I've been involved in more lawsuits than I'd like to admit. However, I've never seen anybody act the way look at her right there, throwing up her hands, accusing people of lying, speaking out. Have you ever had a client do that? And what would you do if that was your client?
Well, I've never had a client do that, but I've certainly grilled people on cross-examination that have gone there. And that's generally a really strong indication that they're lying or have some sort of other remarkable disorder in terms of how they can provide whatever their perspective is. It was uncredible from beginning to end. The fact that her dress was on backwards, the fact that Nathan Wade is dripping sweat throughout his testimony. A judge can look at the behavior and conduct of witnesses in court, and he should, because it is indicative of a lack of truth.
Yeah. Mahek Cook, Andrew Chakosky, appreciate you coming in tonight. All right, stick around. More Frontline in just a sec. Well, I'm still reveling in this. Monday was a pretty good day for America and for the Republic. But what made it even better was the collective meltdowns by the left. I know it happened yesterday, but the freakouts, the liberal freakouts continue. And I just want to spike the football for one more day. This is a huge W. Keith Olbermann never fails to disappoint. Back in 2016, Olbermann didn't much like it when anyone disagreed with the nation's highest court. But he's very happy to denigrate their very existence when a ruling doesn't go his way. He said, quote, the Supreme Court must be dissolved. Tell us you hate democracy without telling us you hate democracy. Or the crying state TV saplings over at CNN who had no choice but to admit that the law and the Constitution actually prevailed.
Look, unfortunately for America, the court isn't necessarily wrong that this is the way the framers wanted it to be.
Isn't necessarily wrong? No, they are literally the final word. That's it. I mean, was she crying? Dana Bash was fighting back tears over the victory of democracy. Think about it. She's basically saying that, it's so unfortunate that the Supreme Court couldn't violate the Constitution. I mean, really, folks? Every single time they do this. You saw the Secretary of State of Colorado was like, I guess we got to leave it to the people. Yes, that is the point. That is what people fought and died for, was so everybody gets one vote. Come on. And that's at CNN. They somehow think that it's bad. Anyway, folks, I just wanted to spike the football for one more day. Anyway, we got election coverage tonight, here, all night. Make sure you're here for all the good stuff. Greta's next.
Break
Breaking tonight, we are about 1 hour away from the first polls closing in the biggest voting day of the 2024 presidential election thus far. At 7 p.m. Eastern, that's an hour from now, polls will start closing in Vermont and Virginia. These are the first 2 states out of the total 15 states and 1 territory that are holding primaries or caucuses as part of Super Tuesday. A total of 874 Republican delegates are up for grabs, and 1,420 Democrat delegates are available as well. So how are the presidential frontrunners positioned going into tonight? Well, let's begin with President Joe Biden. He has 206 delegates and is light years ahead of the uncommitted selection. That category has only 2 delegates. Minnesota Congressman Dean Phillips, running against Biden, has 0 delegates going into tonight's Democratic race. And author Marianne Williamson, who's suspended and then unsuspended her campaign, also has 0 candidates. To win the Democratic nomination, nominee needs 1,968 delegates. So now to the race for the Republican nomination for president. Former President Donald Trump has 276 delegates. Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley has 43 delegates. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who suspended his presidential campaign, has 9 delegates. And entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, who also suspended his presidential candidate, has 3 delegates. To win the Republican nomination, nominee needs 1,215 delegates. But now that we are inching closer to polls closing in 15 states and 1 territory, it is time for Super Tuesday team coverage. Correspondent Addison Smith is in San Diego, California. Polls close in California at 11 p.m. Eastern. Senior correspondent John Huddy is in Palm Beach, Florida at former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago watch party. But first, let's go to correspondent John Glasgow. He's in Denver, Colorado. Colorado polls close at 9 p.m. Eastern time.
Well, Greta, this right here behind me is one of the on-the-spot voting centers here across Colorado. This is in Denver, Colorado. And this is a little bit quiet. I've asked election officials as to why that might be. They said it could be because of the mail-in ballots. Those went out last month, and as of this morning, there was 100,000 of those that were already sent in. That was prior to the Supreme Court ruling and also prior to Super Tuesday. So a lot of Coloradans have already made their mark as to who they want for their presidential candidates. Now, a little history there is the last 2 elections have gone blue here in the general in Colorado, but this could be changing this time around. I talked to some of the supporters out today for the Republican Party. Let's watch.
You know, the immigration thing is out of control, and I think once he gets in, the first day he'll put a stop to all that. And that's one of our biggest issues, I think, really, is all of that. And the reason, I don't know, you can call it conspiracy, whatever, but I think Biden just didn't give a darn.
So we're watching to see how many votes former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley picks up in the state. She was here last week campaigning ahead of Super Tuesday. Now, a lot of issues on the table in Colorado. Denver's a sanctuary city facing budget issues over an influx of migrants arriving in the city. And some suburban areas in Colorado are refusing to become sanctuary cities to ease the burden. Some voters that I talked to say inflation, the economy, those are also election issues. But then there's the fact that Colorado Secretary of State Jena Griswold helped push to have Trump thrown off the ballot. This week, the Supreme Court overturned that decision. Now, we asked Secretary Griswold today whether the 14th Amendment case from Colorado had the appearance of being undemocratic, since it was based on the decision of judges and state officials. Watch this.
To be very clear to Newsmax, no elected official made any decision in this case. This case was filed by 6 Republican and unaffiliated voters in state court here in Colorado. The initial court had a 5-day hearing, including witnesses and evidence presented. It then went to the entire Colorado Supreme Court and then to the United States Supreme Court. So yes, I do believe the trial was fair, and the determination is what the determination is, which was issued by the United States Supreme Court yesterday.
Now, what she didn't say there was that she still disagrees with the SCOTUS's ruling as well. She didn't give an explanation as to why when we asked that question as well. I just want to touch on the Democratic primary real quickly as well. What's happening there is an uncommitted vote. We saw that in Michigan, and that's more or less a protest vote for the president's handling of the war in Gaza. So we'll wait to see if we see more of that here in Colorado. But the main storyline here is, will there be more support for former President Trump now that he is eligible to be on the ballot? Back to you.
John Glasgow, thank you very much in Colorado. Now to Mar-a-Lago, Palm Beach, Florida. Senior correspondent John Huddy at former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago watch party. John.
That's right, Greta. And by the way, you talked about the delegate count. You mentioned Vivek Ramaswamy. He was actually here at Mar-a-Lago yesterday. I was here along with the other press pool for Trump's remarks about the SCOTUS decision having to do with the Colorado ballot case. And as I was leaving what's called the living room here at Mar-a-Lago, the Mar-a-Lago Club, Vivek Ramaswamy was coming in. He's been one of Trump's supporters. He's been one of Trump's surrogates on the campaign trail at the various viewing parties for the primary. So we're expecting him, along with other Trump surrogates and supporters, to be here tonight as well. The last time, by the way, a little background and context, the last time I was in this grand ballroom here at Mar-a-Lago for a Trump event was back, you may recall, April 4th, 2023. That was when Trump appeared in New York City court on this civil fraud case when he was arraigned on those 36 counts. So fast forward now almost a year later, and not only did he get fined more than $350 million in that case, but now he is leading the presumptive GOP nominee, and he is, as John was just talking about, and as we've been reporting here on Newsmax, he is expected to win the primaries tonight. But that's really what we're watching, is by how wide a margin. And his campaign, from what I'm told, what they're looking at are some of the states with open primaries to see how moderate voters, how independent voters vote, and how big a chunk Nikki Haley may pull away from Trump and his overall narrative. And what we heard at Mar-a-Lago yesterday, just real quick, is what we've also heard over the last couple days on the campaign trail. Not only Trump's remarks about the SCOTUS decision, but also one of the main issues on voters' minds, and that is immigration. He talked about that. Remember, we were in Eagle Pass last week when he met with Governor Abbott in Shelby Park, right on the border. He talked about quote-unquote migrant crime. That's a new term that he's been using, the influx of illegal migrants. So we're likely to hear him talk about that tonight, the economy, also presumably, as he did yesterday, the wars in Israel and Ukraine as well. And by the way, one last point, what I'm told by his campaign is that he's likely to speak later this evening after the polls close on the West Coast. Greta?
John Huddy, thank you, at Mar-a-Lago. And lastly, let's go to California. Correspondent Addison Smith is in San Diego. Addison?
Final polls will close here at 8 p.m. local time, 11 p.m. Eastern. There could be some shakeups in store on the congressional side. I'll get to that in a minute. But first, let's talk about the expected outcome of the presidential primary. Former President Donald Trump slated to win if his polls, where he's up as much as 83% support, if those are at all indicative of voters today over former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, whose supporters, I must say, at a voting location I went to downtown were noticeably absent. I spoke to several voters, asked them who they voted for and why. None of them were backing Haley, but here's what they had to say.
Joe Biden. Donald Trump. What's happening at the border? We need law and order back. Donald Trump's the one that's going to do it.
I'm scared silly about the border problem.
I did not vote for president. Joe Biden's not doing what I elected him to do.
I don't even think any of them have health enough to even run.
So again, Trump polling dominantly here in California among Golden State Republicans. All in all, there are 1,215 delegates needed to secure that GOP nomination. 169 of those are up for grabs here in California. Now, as for the shakeup, that could come on the congressional side in the House majority, as Democrats could flip the House by netting 4 seats. And in the Golden State alone, they're after 7 of them. Like in the 45th district, for example, where House incumbent Michelle Steele faces 2 Democrat challengers, or Republican David Vallado in District 22, who faces a divided GOP vote due to a fellow Republican challenging him. Now, on the Senate side, we are seeing former LA Dodgers legend Steve Garvey trying to take on Congressman Adam Schiff, and he is surging in the polls here in California, despite not airing a single television ad. In a recent interview, he stated that voters have been, quote, suppressed by one party and are saying they are mad. Among the issues that I spoke with voters today about, of course, the border. 100,000 illegal aliens dropped off in San Diego since September. So we've talked to several who are frustrated about that. Of course, as someone who lived in California for a while, the prices, the economy is another big issue on their minds. But one thing that came up earlier today when I was at the poll, Greta, was voter ID. A gentleman walked in he was a Trump voter and said, "Do I need to show my ID?" And they said no. He said, "Well, couldn't anyone just walk in and say they're me and vote?" And the response was, "I don't think that's going to happen." So we asked a few people about that voter ID issue. Here's what they said. Some of the voters here earlier expressed that they weren't asked to present voter ID. Were you?
No.
I've never been asked to show ID.
Does that concern you?
No.
If you can break the rules, they will break the rules.
I wonder, would it be possible for somebody to game the system? And I think anybody who is seriously interested in voting multiple times could go to multiple polling stations and probably pass themselves off as somebody else.
And that last man that you just heard from, that wasn't a Trump supporter. If you heard him in the earlier clip, he voted down ballot Democrat, voted for Joe Biden. And as I kind of probed with him about voter ID, he started to admit, yeah, it could be a serious problem. As for the gentleman that I referenced earlier, the Trump voter, I said, could someone have voted for you if without any ID and gotten away with it? He said, absolutely. If they knew my name and address, if they had a piece of my mail, they could have absolutely voted in my place, Greta. Again, polls close at 11 p.m. Eastern. We'll be monitoring those results.
Addison Smith in California, thank you very much. And it's time for 24/24, the latest election 24 news in the last 24 hours. And there's much going on since this is, as you know, Super Tuesday from what my colleagues just reported. First up, as voters in 15 states and 1 territory headed to the polls to vote in a primary or caucus, former United States Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said this.
And, you know, somebody the other day said to me, Zerlina, well, but, you know, Joe Biden's old. I said, you know what? Joe Biden is old. Let's go ahead and accept the reality. Joe Biden is old. So we have a contest between one candidate who's old, but who's done an effective job and doesn't threaten our democracy. And we have another candidate who is old, barely makes sense when he talks, is dangerous, and threatens our democracy. So really, pick between your 2 old ones and figure out how you're going to save our democracy.
Well, I think it's fair to say she doesn't sound like she's a Trump vote. So next up, former First Lady Michelle Obama. She's telling everybody to stop with the rumors. She's not running for president. In a statement to NBC News, the former First Lady's office said, quote, as former First Lady Michelle Obama has expressed several times over the years, she will not be running for president. Ms. Obama supports President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris' re-election campaign, end quote. Michelle Obama also sounds like a no vote for Trump. Moving on, famous singer Taylor Swift has finally broken her silence on the upcoming presidential election today. Swift took to Instagram and posted, quote, today, March 5th, is the presidential primary caucus in 15 states and 1 territory. I want to remind you guys to vote the people who most represent you into power. If you haven't already, make a plan to vote today. Whether you're in Tennessee or somewhere else in the U.S., check your polling places and times at vote.org, end quote. Taylor Swift not telling anybody, at least not tonight on Instagram, who gets her vote. Next up, today, former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley releases campaign ad targeting a Republican 2024 rival, former President Donald Trump.
We will have so much winning if I get elected that you may get bored with winning.
This is a ship that has a hole in it. We lost in 2018. We lost in 2020. We lost in 2022. And Donald Trump had his fingerprints in all of it. How many more times do we have to lose before we start to say maybe Donald Trump is the problem? There's a reason the Democrats are salivating at the thought of Donald Trump. You're watching him change the Republican Party policies. What used to be small government and less spending. He put us $8 trillion in debt in just 4 years. Didn't shrink government, he grew government. We've always believed in peace through strength. And now we see him walking away from our allies and instead holding hands with dictators.
And lastly, it's been a crazy day with voters taking to the polls. And to add to that frenzy, today, former Democrat, now independent Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema took to X, formerly known as Twitter, to drop this political bomb.
I believe in my approach, but it's not what America wants right now. I love Arizona, and I am so proud of what we've delivered. Because I choose civility, understanding, listening, working together to get stuff done, I will leave the Senate at the end of this year.
Now that the Arizona senator is not seeking re-election, the race for Sinema's Senate seat is likely going to be between Democrat Arizona Congressman Ruben Gallego and Republican former Arizona gubernatorial candidate Kari Lake. I say likely because the primary for Sinema's Arizona seat has not yet happened. That primary will be held on July 30th. Political White House and Washington reporter Daniel Lippman joins me. Daniel, you know, listening to all the candidates, including Governor Nikki Haley on the Republican side, and the whole Democrat side, I don't hear anyone saying, this is what I'm going to do. They're all targeting Trump. I mean, it's interesting to say, nobody's saying, here's what I've done for you.
Yeah, their policy plans are not as strong as we who are kind of wonks would like it to be. We don't hear from Trump about a new agenda. We have the wall, we have the 10% tariffs, but he doesn't actually talk about that very much because that would be a tax on many people who buy stuff. For Biden, the only thing he has that's new is a middle-class tax cut, but Democrats always talk about that.
What's his record that he can run on Biden? I mean, you've got this border. Every person that comes up is talking about the border. And I mean, and Biden acts like what border?
Well, his record is, you know, he's going to say we passed historic pieces of legislation in Congress. We had a semiconductor race that we were losing to China. We are now building, you know, tens of plants to build semiconductor chips, which are so important for the AI revolution. They're going to talk about how they spent more than they have a more than $300 billion package on climate change, which is, you know, we need solar power, we need renewable energy because we need to have a transition to a no carbon economy.
All that spending, though, heats up the economy and inflation, and people are like really hurting with the inflation. I mean, it may be jobs, but if you got inflation, your job's not worth that much.
Well, they're going to say that inflation has come down in historic numbers. We don't see 9% anymore. It's basically at the grocery store. And I'm actually going to be, I'm interviewing the head of the Federal Trade Commission in a few days where I'm going to press her, hey, you are going after Kroger's and Albertsons. Is that actually going to fix stuff? Or?
I think that's a hard sell when people go to the grocery store to hear that the people in Washington say that it's come down. But anyway, Daniel, we're starting to get the exit polling, so let's see what we got. According to NBC News, in North Carolina, 15% say their family financial situation is, quote, getting ahead. 57% say holding steady. 26% say falling behind. So that's the economy.
Well, yeah, it's people. It's a tough time out there, but it's also you see people who are feeling better. You don't see a lot of people are treading water. I think that's the kind of the term. Most people are probably wishing that they had put $1,000 in NVIDIA a few years ago, but you really can't have a retirement outlook on that. I think the core of the issue is for the last 20 years, Americans from across parties have said we're on the wrong track. You have a political system that is ignoring them. You don't have public schools in a good place. Most people who have the means put their kids in private schools because they worry about their kids' future.
But I think that falls. You know, it used to be that the Democratic Party was the party of the people, sort of the lunch pail people in the unions. Now it's actually become the elite ones. So the ones that go to Harvard and Yale, the Secretary of State and everything else. It's, you know, Donald Trump appeals. The reason why he's getting so much traction, I think, is because he does appeal. Even though he's had fancy education and lots of money, he does appeal to sort of, you know, Joe Camel, the person out there across the country.
He's always had that chip on his shoulder because he came from an outer borough of Manhattan.
I don't know about that.
But people who are on kind of being left behind in the globalized economy, they identify with him because they are being left behind by the 10% of elite people in there. Everyone. There's a 10% of elite in every city.
And that's Biden's problem, is that he's seen as part of the elite. You know, and you know, if things are hurting, naturally.
Especially with all those houses he has, where does that money come from?
Well, anyway, that's for another day. He actually did have an $8 million book deal. But Daniel Lippman, thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, one tech billionaire is sounding the alarm on a national security threat. He says this could be worse than 9/11. Chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee, Mark Green, is here when the record continues. Tonight, protests are erupting outside City Hall in Athens, Georgia. The protest began ahead of a planned meeting with the Athens-Clarke County Commission. That meeting was set to address public safety measures in the wake of college nursing student Laken Riley's murder. The meeting kicked off at 6 p.m. Eastern. About 30 minutes before the meeting began, protesters calling themselves Make Athens Safe Again rallied outside the City Hall. At the same time, protesters from Athens' anti-discrimination movement held a unity vigil. This going on as tech billionaire Elon Musk is sounding the alarm about our nation's wide-open borders. Musk posting on X, quote, "The administration is both importing voters and creating a national security threat from unvetted illegal immigrants. It's highly probable that the groundwork is being laid for something far worse than 9/11, just a matter of time," end quote. And Elon Musk has reason to be worried. On February 21st, just 1 week before President Biden and former President Donald Trump's visits to the southern border, Border Patrol agents arrested an illegal migrant on the terror watch list. According to the New York Post, agents apprehended a 40-year-old Colombian national in Eagle Pass, Texas. His name is Carlos Obed Yepes Bedoya. He was flagged as a group member, indicating that he is associated with a terror organization. Specifics about which group he's affiliated with were not given. And as illegal migrants pour into our country, state police are still being blocked from making arrests. Yesterday in Arizona, Democratic Governor Katie Hobbs vetoed a bill that would allow Arizona State Police to arrest undocumented migrants. Texas passed a law that would allow state police to arrest migrants who entered the U.S. illegally. But yesterday, the United States Supreme Court temporarily froze enforcement of that law until March 13th. This will give the High Court additional time to review the case, but in no way is this temporary freezing suggesting how the court is ultimately leaning. Tennessee Congressman and Chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee, Mark Green, joins me. Good evening, sir. And as we talk to people around the country here, voting, immigration, and the border is obviously a very serious issue. Now we know, and we've always heard about people on the terror watch list getting into this country. How do you get on the terror watch list? What do you have to do to get on that list?
You have to be associated or in an organization or associated with an organization that's known as a terrorist organization. You can make certain statements and be tracked by local governments, for example, other countries, and they can report you onto the terrorist watch list or to the United States, and we add that person to the terrorist watch list. So it's known associations, basically, that get you on the list.
Okay, so the key word is known. So if I'm a member of the group, but I'm just not known, I'm not on the list. But I could be sympathetic to the group.
That's right. That's exactly correct.
All right. So when someone comes across the border, do the people who in the United States, whether it's ICE or Border Patrol, when they confront these people, do they have the electronic list? I mean, and then I would assume that would take someone telling his or her name, right?
That's right, Greta. We have a list that is used. It's bounced against a database, that individual's name, when they have that individual's name. And then actually, Secretary Mayorkas told us in testimony when he came for the national threats brief, he refused to answer if he had given orders for all of those people, even if they're on the terrorist watch list, to be detained. So we have no idea. I mean, we know known terrorists have been released into the country. We had the al-Shabaab guy that was in the country for over a year, the one you just mentioned from Colombia, and the list goes on and on.
Well, so if let's say that someone wants to come into the country as a terrorist, could use my name, and my name's not on the list, that person would gain admission, right? Because you don't have to prove your identity.
Exactly. There's no proof of identity required to get into the United States anymore. In this open border, you just show up, give them a name, they take that name, and then they let you fly on an airplane. Yet an American has got to prove with real ID that they are who they say they are to get on an airplane and fly in this country. But from the border, you can claim whoever you are, and TSA is letting them in because DHS Secretary Mayorkas said that's what they're to do.
So it's almost a little silly when I report, like, one person came in who's on the terror watch list today because, A, we don't, I mean, the terror list could have, there could be 6 other people who got in who are on the terror list who aren't, quote, known, or the 6 more people could have false names who are on the terror list. I mean, so is this terror list really of any great value to us? I mean, does it really tell us anything?
Well, it certainly informs the FBI task forces. Those guys actually track down these individuals once they get in the United States. Director Wray talked about that, too, in the threat briefing that they gave. And his task forces are capturing some of these people. Fortunately, they got that al-Shabaab terrorist and got him out of the country. So, yeah, I mean, having the list is important because local law enforcement can actually tap into that database through fusion centers. So, yes, it's important to have and maintain that list. We just wish DHS, the Secretary would allow them to use it. Yeah.
I don't want to be an alarmist, but I mean, like, we know if we see the Russian military come over our border, we can see them. But if you get a terrorist come in whose name we don't know and the person's carrying a deadly virus, and then shows up in Times Square, I mean, we have no control over that, and I don't think there's ever a possibility of control over that.
Well, you think of the known gotaways, I mean, just the 1.8 million known gotaways, and that number's a lot less than what it really is, because Border Patrol can no longer be out on the border and see known gotaways, right? The number was going up at a much higher rate, but because they've been concentrated at the point crossing centers processing the migrants and not out on the border, the known gotaways number is not increasing at the rate that it would be expected to. So that means all the unknown numbers, the unknown gotaways, is significantly higher. And we can't, there's no way to know who either of those two groups are. It could be a Hamas cell, it could be Chinese spies, it could be Russian spies. I mean, there's no way to know. Our border is wide open, and every American is at risk because of the actions of this president and this secretary.
I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, I'm going to take the last word out, but it does seem like it's too late when the border has been so wide open for so long that I don't know if we can ever, you know, and the way it's so easy to slip into this country with so many names and everything else. But anyway, I'm taking the last word on that. Chairman Mark Green, thank you, sir.
Thanks, Greta.
Still ahead, once again, Harvard must answer to a no-nonsense congresswoman. Her name is Virginia Fox. The last time the university had to answer to her, it sparked former Harvard President Claudine Gay's painful march towards resignation. That when the record continues. Tonight, the House Education Committee is poring over documents surrendered by Harvard University in answer to a congressional subpoena. Yesterday, the embattled Ivy League school faced a 5 p.m. subpoena deadline to provide key materials relating to all anti-Semitic acts or incidents since January 1st, 2021. In a statement, a Harvard spokesperson said, quote, Harvard has provided nearly 4,900 pages of information in 11 submissions since January. The spokesperson also said the university is continuing to respond in good faith to the congressional investigation. Chairwoman of the House Education Committee, North Carolina, Congresswoman Virginia Fox joins me. Good evening, Congresswoman. And you have issued a statement about it's unsatisfactory what Harvard has done, and you said that it might be arrogance, ineptness, or indifference. Tell me.
Well, it's hard to know, Greta, but they are not providing the information that we need. I think it's malfeasance on the part of Harvard not to do it. I think we supplied you with a page of completely redacted material. We want quality, not quantity, in the information that we're getting from Harvard, and they're just not responding adequately. It's a shame. It really is a shame.
Well, you have this redacted page. We've got it up on the screen. What was the point of giving you a blank piece of paper, and what's their justification for redacting it? What are they hiding?
Well, that's the question everybody needs to ask. What are they hiding? If they're not giving us the information that we are requesting, then they obviously must be hiding something. We need to get to the bottom of the anti-Semitic actions that are occurring on Harvard's campus and Harvard's response to those things. I don't know how much you saw of the students we had last week testifying at our roundtable, but it was really heartrending. What they're telling us is what's happening on campus, and it's not getting any better, Greta.
All right, now that Harvard says it's complied with the subpoena, you say no. You say it's arrogant, ineptness, or indifference. Any of the above are really bad. Plus, they give you a redacted sheet, which means they basically gave you a blank piece of paper, among other things. They said they've given you other documents. What can you do, and what are you going to do?
Well, we're going to move into this very, very carefully. This is a very, very serious investigation. We will do several different things, but we're not ready to announce those yet. But Harvard needs to take this seriously, and they need to be providing the committee with information. I saw an article where another lawyer, which I think got the presidents in trouble during our hearing, but lawyers are saying, well, you know, they can stonewall a little bit. That's not what they should be doing. They should be forthcoming with the information that we're asking for and not provide us lots and lots of blank pages.
Well, that was pretty about the dumbest thing. I mean, the blank page, it probably would have been better off to try to, hide it. And instead they tease you with a blank page. I mean, that was, look, I'm a lawyer, and I like my prior career, but these lawyers have gotten these universities in a whole heap of trouble. I mean, look what happened with those 3 professors. There are 3 presidents who testified before your committee. That was about the dumbest legal advice I ever heard when they gave you those answers.
That's exactly right. And I warned them the day before to be forthcoming, to take moral stands, to get us fined, and they didn't do that. They listened to their lawyers, and they're getting bad advice, Greta. They need you as a lawyer.
I actually would be careful not to mess with you, actually, Chairwoman. I'd be smart about that. All right, you're going after Harvard. You're going after Harvard. What other universities do you want information from, and will you subpoena them?
We will if they don't give us the information. We're going after Columbia. We've issued letters to several. Cooper's Union. I can't remember all of the ones that we have done. UPenn, obviously. UPenn, Columbia, Cooper's Union, and others. But we will continue. The students who bring forth accusations against the schools, and particularly when we have good evidence about what's happening, is not just the students' testimony, but it's videos and it's corroboration by other people. We are going to make sure that we follow up on those things.
Well, they'd be much smarter. That drip, drip, drip always gets everybody into trouble. It's better just to, like, come clean and, throw yourself at the mercy of the courts, so to speak. But this drip, drip, drip is going to create a lot of money, and they probably will lose a lot of federal money. Chairwoman Virginia Fox, thank you for joining me, and I hope you come back.
Thank you, Greta.
Coming up, under the headline, you just can't make this stuff up. The Fulton County case could be reopened, and an assistant DA may be testifying against DA Fani Willis. That spells big, big trouble. Plus, a must-see video when the record continues after this. Just when you thought the end was near, a new witness in Fulton County, Georgia, and it is no ordinary witness. It is an assistant DA in the next-door county, Cobb County. And if you believe the court pleading, she's blowing the whistle on DA Fani Willis. Willis' special friend and special prosecutor Nathan Wade blowing the whistle on him, and also on their friend, maybe not former friend, but certainly former law partner, Terrence Bradley. And if the representations are correct in the pleading, those three are in a heap of more trouble than you ever thought before. According to a court pleading filed on Friday, defense lawyers in the Georgia election case had a telephone call with Cindy Lee Yeager. Now, Yeager is the co-chief deputy DA for the Cobb County, Georgia District Attorney's Office. According to the pleading, Yeager says DA Fani Willis and Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade began their romantic relationship in 2019. Now, should Yeager be right, her testimony would make the testimony under oath of Willis Wade and Terrence Bradley all false, and that means perjury. Last Friday, the judge heard summations from all the parties, and at the conclusion, he announced he was taking the case under advisement and would issue a decision within 2 weeks whether to disqualify Fani Willis. But now defense lawyers are asking Judge McAfee to reopen the case's evidence and allow Yeager to now testify. Yeager says, per the pleading, that she had numerous in-person conversations with Terrence Bradley about Wade and Willis, and that their relationship began back in 2019, which is even before Willis became Fulton County DA. So why is Yeager coming forward now? Well, according to the pleading, quote, Ms. Yeager watched Mr. Bradley's testimony before the court and became concerned as a result of the fact that what Mr. Bradley testified to on the witness stand was directly contrary to what Mr. Bradley had told Ms. Yeager in person, end of quote. And according to the pleading, there was also a phone call that the defense lawyers want Judge McAfee to know about. Around September of 2023, Yeager claims she was in a room with Bradley when Willis called Bradley. And according to the pleading, Yeager heard Willis tell Bradley there was an ongoing investigation into the money Wade and his law partners had been paid in connection to the Georgia election case against Trump and others. The filing reads, quote, Ms. Yeager heard District Attorney Willis tell Mr. Bradley, they are coming after us. You don't need to talk to them about anything about us, end of quote. And that's not all the news out of Georgia. Georgia defense attorney Ashley Merchant, whose client is Trump co-defendant Michael Roman, has been subpoenaed to a Georgia Senate hearing. Tomorrow in a hearing in the Georgia State Senate investigating Willis, Merchant will be testifying. That committee was formed back in January when Merchant filed the first claim of Willis's romantic relationship with Wade. Former federal prosecutor, former assistant United States attorney for the Northern District of Georgia, Francie Hakes, joins me, as does Gray's Analytics Vice President, General Counsel, and former U.S. attorney for the Northern District of Alabama, Jay Town. Thank you both for being here. Let me go first to you, Francie. So what do you think?
Well, you know, Greta, this looks really bad for Fani Wade and especially Terrence Bradley, who I watched all the testimony, and it certainly looked to me like you could conclude that he was not telling the truth. His very convenient lack of memory was extremely suspicious, especially given some of these text chains happened just about 6 weeks before his testimony. That doesn't make sense. I know Cindy Yeager. I practiced in Cobb County. I was an assistant DA in Cobb County. She had recently left that office and gone out to do criminal defense work and is now back as an assistant DA or the co-chief assistant DA of that office. I don't know, I can't think of any reason that Cindy Yeager would have to insert herself into this kind of case unless she heard what she says she did. Now, I also would have thought that Fonnie Willis and Nathan Wade would have told the truth because they also have a duty of candor to the court. At this point, this case is an absolute disaster thanks to one person, Fonnie Willis.
And Jay, what do you think? Because I'm looking at my card here. I've written possibility if I were investigating down there, Fonnie Willis and Wade and Bradley, they all get a chance to prove, to defend themselves. I would say perjury, obstruction of justice, conspiracy to commit perjury, conspiracy to obstruct justice, if what Yeager says is true. What are your thoughts?
Greta, you make great points on that, and I agree with everything Francie said. The biggest thing here from Yeager is that, remember, Bradley struggled to get to the truth in just about every question to include, tell us your name. And this really corroborates everything that Ashley Merchant said that was existing between the text messages between the two and the phone calls and the emails and the communications. And Yeager overheard the very same thing. For whatever reason, Bradley was telling the story at the end of 2023, but didn't want to tell it last week. So I think that Judge McAfee actually has an opportunity here to just put an end to this. And he could disqualify Fonnie Willis and the entire office and move on. Yes, there could be a criminal investigation, but he really needs to just put an end to the circus because it continues to erode the trust and confidence in the justice system.
I think it's gone far beyond that. I think 2 months ago, the three of us were on the air, and we said, boy, this doesn't look good. And we didn't know half of this. We didn't know any of this, and we thought that this was bad, and we thought she should disqualify herself without any. Right. She, on the other hand, knew everything. She knew everything. And I don't think you can just say, well, McAfee ought to put an end to this because, self-inflicted wounds, everything. I don't think you can tell the American people that it's okay, assuming all this is correct. And by the way, according to the pleading, she also corroborates Robin Yeardy, who was a friend of Willis. Yep. I don't think Francie, you could just say, well, okay, let's disqualify her and move on. I don't think you can leave it at that at this point. This is self-inflicted.
It is self-inflicted, Greta, and what she knew that none of the rest of us did when she hired Nathan Wade was that they were apparently an item. And then she did what it seems to be very unethical and possibly public corruption. And I would say a Trump Department of Justice is going to have to investigate her if he wins at the end of this year for public corruption, because in her ethics statements and gift statements that she filed 2 years in a row, she denied getting any gifts of any kind. And that includes any gifts from Nathan Wade, who is known as what's called a prohibited source. She's not allowed to take a single thing from him. Not a dinner, not a lunch, not an airplane ticket, not a cruise fare, and she knows that. She's a public official who ran against an allegedly corrupt prior district attorney on a platform of cleaning up the city. So she knew darn good and well what she was omitting in those filings.
And to think that we were all scandalized 2 months ago and she knew all of this, but she should have a fair shake. I want to hear from Fonnie Willis on this. But I need Francie Hakes and J-Town. Thank you. Tomorrow there'll be testimony. They'll be streamed, and we'll hear more. Thank you. Thank you both.
Thanks, Greta.
Thanks, Greta.
We're coming up on 7 p.m. as the polls are about to close in 2 states. We're going to take you there live when the record continues. National correspondent Logan Raddick is in Alexandria, Virginia, as polls are set to close there. Logan.
Well, Greta, this is an open primary here in Virginia, so if you're a Democrat, you can go out and vote for a Republican presidential candidate. Keep in mind the polls are closing at the top of the hour. You can see some voters still in the precinct behind me. But in terms of this open primary, we could see a lot of Democrats come out for Nikki Haley and vote for her against Donald Trump. We know that there is some of an effort underway here, but that's not going to be so widespread that Nikki Haley really has a viable chance to win the primary here. Because keep in mind, last week, Nikki Haley spent time campaigning in Virginia. She went to Richmond. She went to Northern Virginia. Those are the two areas in which Marco Rubio defeated Donald Trump in 2016. But Donald Trump won the Virginia Republican primary that year. We talked to some Trump voters today, and they all agreed that it's time for Nikki Haley to drop out.
Democrats are supporting her candidacy right now. That's where all our money is coming from. As far as I'm concerned, she's another Elizabeth Cheney, and I think her political career is dead.
I'm going to vote for President Trump. I was considering Nikki, but after I saw her comments, I'm not going to vote for her. If I can speak directly to President Trump, I wish he would tone his comments down on his political opponents. We want you to run the country. We want you to be effective. He has great policies, but I don't want to hear the drama, man. I don't want to hear the drama from him.
And there are some Democratic voters who are not happy with the way that President Biden is handling the war between Israel and Hamas, and they say that they're going to be voting for Marianne Williamson in the Democratic primary. But the polls, again, closing at 7 o'clock here in Virginia. Joe Biden and Donald Trump both expected to win handily in their respective primaries. And the primary is the only vote on the ballot. Some other states have other primaries, just the presidential primary here in Virginia. Greta.
Logan Raddick in Virginia, thank you very much. And we will be right back.
You.
Breaking tonight, the first polls are starting to close. Stay on Newsmax for continuing Super Tuesday special coverage. Rob Schmidt tonight is up next.
All right, Super Tuesday. The polls close in Virginia and Vermont right now. Let's check it out. Welcome to Rob Schmidt tonight, and we are all Super Tuesday tonight for the GOP. 15 states, 13 primaries and 2 caucuses up for grabs, 865 delegates. Trump cannot seal the deal tonight, but the results that we are expecting will basically assure him the nomination. And 2 states to watch have just closed here at 7 o'clock. We have purple Virginia and blue Vermont, both with open primaries, which Democrats will corrupt and give some amount of fake support to Nikki Haley before proudly voting for Biden in 8 months, of course. Also, you have North Carolina with a closed primary, and the polls in North Carolina close at 7:30 tonight. So those are the 3 states we're going to be watching. Vermont could be the most interesting one because, again, that's a very blue state, very political state as well. And we're not sure what that open primary is going to mean. But that's the only one where they say that Nikki Haley could potentially have some kind of a chance among these 15 different contests tonight. The current GOP delegate count: Trump at 273, Nikki Haley at 43, others at 12. Nobody else even close to the former president. He does need 1215 to win effectively, but that's not going to happen until likely next week. So that will not happen tonight. Next week, 4 more states vote next Tuesday. Let's bring in Mercedes Schlapp, who worked in the Trump administration. She joins me now, along with our friend Larry Elder, the author of As Goes California. And to you both, we appreciate it. Mercedes, starting with you. We have Joe Biden. Obviously, they've just announced, DDHQ has announced that Joe Biden has taken the Vermont Democrat
surprise,
primary. It was
surprise.
a shocker of all
I
the
mean,
week.
it was either that or, a communist. I'm not quite sure.
Exactly right. We're still waiting on Trump. We could get these, and again, we could get these numbers here any minute
Sure.
we could get a call here in Virginia and Vermont. It's been happening very fast throughout this primary season.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
let's remember Vermont is only 17 delegates, not very much.
Right.
And basically anyone can vote in that primary in Vermont. It's a deep blue state. So that would be the best chance for Nikki Haley to win that delegate count. With that being said, that's completely insignificant. When you look at Virginia, which is a state that I live in, that one, it looks, you would have to pass that 50% threshold, which I think when you've seen the last polls, Haley was at 43%. Again, I don't think she will in any way win that state. I think Trump will win it. It'll be tighter because that Northern Virginia area is a lot of professionals, a lot of college educated. That's what she's counting on. Those types of suburban,
Very swampy too.
Very
I mean, this
swampy.
is right outside
and you're right.
DC.
It does. You
Yeah.
wonder if that momentum from the DC ridiculous vote that she won, if that translates into Virginia. I don't think it's going to be enough. I think Trump takes Virginia.
I mean, what we had 2,000 people voted in the GOP primary in
2,000,
Washington
yes,
D.C.
that's
I mean, that was
significant.
a primary I don't think you wanted to win. I think I'd be embarrassed if I won
Yeah,
Washington
you don't want to
D.C.
win with the
And
swamp
that's the one that
creatures.
Nikki. That's the one that
That's
Nikki
right.
won. Larry, your thoughts tonight? We're waiting for Virginia, and Vermont could come anytime.
Well, Rob, it's nice to know that you got my memo about the suit, the shirt, the tie, and the pocket square. Mercedes, always nice to see you. Look, it's all over but the shouting. Nikki Haley has two chances, slim and none. And you know the expression, slim just left town. She doesn't have any media buys after tomorrow. She has no campaign appearances after tomorrow. So she pretty much has conceded that tonight's her last. The only question.
Go, keep on going, Larry. We got Biden winning Virginia.
Okay.
Again, not a surprise. You can keep on going. That's fine.
I was going to say, the only question is, does she gracefully exit tonight and then throw her support to Donald Trump, or does she stay in a little bit longer? That's really the only real mystery right now.
Yeah, I mean, Mercedes, you think she's got to drop tonight? I don't think she's going to do it, but it's just it starts to look kind of sad to keep limping along like this, right?
Limping,
Yeah.
yes. I would say crawling along on the floor for crying out loud. But look, I think obviously she sees no path to victory. Now, she did raise $1 million in those first few days in March. I think it was about $12 million during the month of February.
Right.
She's got money, but they're not spending it. No TV ads, no radio ads. As Larry said, there's no event scheduled. To me, that's a telling sign that she might be conceding tonight.
Yeah, and she's lost some. I mean, didn't she lose the Koch brothers, or she's lost
the Koch
some big
brothers
donors?
or some of the big billionaires. Look, the
Right.
grassroots,
Yeah.
they don't want her.
Yeah.
And she's done everything to isolate the MAGA movement. So let's just say that she even steps away. She would have had a chance of working in the Trump
Yeah.
cabinet, but the way she's, I think, treated Trump and the MAGA supporters,
Yeah.
there's not a lot of love for Nikki Haley right now.
No, yeah. And again, we could be getting Virginia, Vermont results here. We have Biden winning both those two states. The polls closed 5 minutes ago in Virginia and Vermont. So we await those results. As we do, Larry, I wanted to show a great exit poll from NBC today that I thought really showed the psyche of the Nikki Haley voter. Nearly 70% of her voters in the state of California, was where this was taken, are not even sure they're going to be voting for a Republican come November. So that's her support system. A lot of people that'll probably go for her because they hate Trump and then vote for Biden in about 8 months.
That's right. And that was the case regarding her big donors, too. They were either never Trumpers or people who were Democrats who were propping her up. And you're quite right. One of her big donors, the Koch Foundation, whatever they're called, is no longer going to spend money. One of the supporters, a House member in South Carolina who supported her, after that primary, he said, look, the voters have spoken. Trump's the guy. So it's all over. And all she's doing is giving Biden more and more video ammo that will be used against Trump going forward.
Yeah, and Mercedes, to the same point, I mean, it's, her support system is fraudulent, it feels. I mean, it's like how many people that are actually supporting her right now are doing it because they actually like her and not because they just hate Trump and they're trying to figure out any way they can.
She does this, I call it the 20% strategy, right? So she wins in these states at 20%, let's say she maxes out there. Look, that's not a winning strategy. You can't keep losing state after state after state. The other thing is you're spending millions of dollars in this primary that's being misspent as opposed to focusing on the general election, which we know that Joe Biden has a very, very strong war chest. And obviously all the outside money that the Democrats are going to spend in this general election to try to salvage this incredibly weak and incompetent president.
Right. Larry, we're going to let you go here for a second. I think you got some things to get to. We're going to keep Mercedes, though, if that's okay. Good to see you, Larry. We appreciate you coming on. Thank you, sir. Again, projected winner, Virginia, Vermont, Joe Biden. They have not called anything for the former President Trump at this point. It's been about 7 minutes since the polls have closed in those two states. Mercy, Axios today reporting Biden's new strategy as this basically turns into a two-man race at this point, I think we can say. The strategy for the general election in November is attacking Trump more viciously. Is what Axios is reporting, which is, I mean, just look at that picture. Biden privately pushing for a much more aggressive approach to 2024. He wants to go for Donald Trump's jugular, convinced that he'll rattle Trump. Biden thinks he can rattle Trump if he taunts him every single day.
I think Biden rattles himself every single day. Let's be real. Look, they've tried this approach. The Democrats and the far left, what they have focused on primarily is that Trump is a threat to democracy. They've used that line over and over again. It has not worked. Right. When you're looking at the fact that now you have a more enthusiastic base with Donald Trump, Republicans are saying 89% that they're going to support Donald Trump. Let's say Trump is convicted. 86% of Republicans are sticking with Donald Trump. Biden has a very big problem because his whole coalition falling apart. Working class Americans, they're more enthusiastic about Trump. You're seeing women and Hispanics also supporting President Trump. I got to tell you, if I was the Biden White House political team, I would be very nervous right now. Their goal is try to get under President Trump's skin. Right. I just think for Joe Biden, he can barely get through the day. Right. I think it's going to be an ineffective strategy.
Okay. Mercy, thank you so much for joining us. Good to see you. Might see you later on in this show. Good to see you as always. So again, you know, we have the two first states to close tonight. Could be the most interesting to watch. Obviously, it's going to be pretty much a sweep for Trump tonight. Everybody's expecting that. But these two states, Virginia, Vermont, could have the most interesting results of all the states because they both have open primaries and they have a lot of Democrat voters. And they also have a lot of moderate Republicans in these places as well. So we're going to watch it. We're going to see when these numbers do start to come in. We're going to bring you that. Our senior correspondent, John Huddy, is at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach tonight. In the meantime, a big speech for the former president in front of a very large crowd expected here in just a few hours.
Definitely.
Right, John?
That's right, and actually, Rob, the room is really filled up, and I've been kind of scanning to see who's coming in. I saw Boris Epstein here, Bruce Lavelle, who's been on our show quite a bit. He's one of Trump's senior advisors, and I'm also looking for some of Trump's surrogates. You know, yesterday I was here at Mar-a-Lago in what's called the living room at the Mar-a-Lago Club. I was part of the press pool there for Trump's remarks about the SCOTUS's decision on the Colorado ballot case, and as I was leaving the Mar-a-Lago Club, Vivek Ramaswamy was coming in. So he's been, on the campaign trail. He's been at a lot of these primary events with former President Trump, along with Tim Scott. So I'm trying to see if possibly we're going to see them coming in the room at some point this evening as well. We're hearing, by the way, according to the campaign, I'm told, and this isn't confirmed, we'll see, but I'm told that former President Trump will not likely be making remarks until after the polls close on the West Coast. So that will obviously be in a few hours. But as you've just been talking about with the panel, he is expected to easily cruise to victory. He's unlikely to get that magic number of 1,215 delegates tonight or even before March 12th, but he's well on his way. And as we heard yesterday, and as we're seeing, by the way, in some of the exit polls today, as he talked about here at Mar-a-Lago, he'll probably talk about it today, he's really been drilling down on the issue of immigration, Rob. Last week, I was in Eagle Pass, Texas, when Trump was there meeting with Governor Greg Abbott, who once again tweeted tonight his support and in his endorsement of Donald Trump. And Trump, in remarks to the media, I actually talked to him. I asked him a question about Venezuela. I asked Abbott about Joe Biden. And Trump used a new term, migrant crime, the influx of illegal migrants and the crime being perpetuated. And that's really been one of the number one, if not the number one issue on voters' minds, not only as we're seeing tonight, but also in some of the previous primaries over the last couple months, Rob. Back to you.
Okay, John Huddy at Mar-a-Lago. Again, the former president expected to speak probably when the polls close in California, which I think is 10 o'clock tonight, so probably sometime after 10 o'clock you'll hear from the former president. We're running this coverage, by the way, all night. This will run till at least midnight here on Newsmax all Super Tuesday tonight. It is a very, very big, important night, as you know. All right, our friend Tom Basile is at the big board all night for us tonight. So we've got 2 states. The polls have just closed about 10 minutes ago.
Right.
Any results in at this point?
Not just yet, but I want to talk about Vermont and Virginia, but in particular Vermont, because we have called that now for President Joe Biden. Now, when you're an incumbent, you should get about 90% in a presidential primary. But Vermont, like 9 of the other states tonight, they allow you to actually choose undecided or uncommitted. And so one of the things that we're watching for tonight is on the Democratic side, are you actually going to have a lot more uncommitted votes because of the relative weakness of Joe Biden? So we're taking a look at that in states like Vermont, home of Bernie Sanders. As you did mention, also the governor there, very popular, has been campaigning with Nikki Haley. So we're going to keep an eye on that. But think about those uncommitted voters as we start talking about these races as they close across the country. Now, Super Tuesday isn't just about the presidential races. We're going to be following all night long a bunch of down ballot races, and North Carolina closes in just about 20 minutes from now, about maybe 15 minutes from now. Yeah. And redistricting could lead now to a number of Republican pickups for the House majority to help them maintain or grow the House majority. So there are a number of congressional districts that are in play today that we're going to be following. 5 of the 14 incumbent members are retiring, so that sets up a lot of contests that we're going to look at tonight. And then, of course, the primary, the 3-way primary for the Republican gubernatorial nomination, the lieutenant governor, conservative firebrand, Mark Robinson.
Tom, hold on one second. We were projecting at this point that former President Trump has won the state of Virginia. So we can project that, not to cut you off there, but we'll bring that in. That's big. Obviously, 1% of the votes in, but just from that, a projection can be made. Trump at about 76%, again, only a few hundred votes in, according to this count. But the state of Virginia, we just talked about it, Tom, with Mercedes a moment ago. That was going to be one of the tighter states. It's obviously has a very, it's got a very moderate side to it. A lot of moderate Republicans live in the state of Virginia. It's also suburban Washington, D.C., which is a very anti-Trump machine.
Absolutely. And we'll be looking at this on the big board all night and seeing where, if Haley has an opportunity to pick up delegates in some of these states, usually it's going to be in the urban areas and in the suburbs, and we're going to be breaking that down. But in North Carolina today, we're also going to be following that 3-way Republican gubernatorial primary. Mark Robinson, the lieutenant governor, has the support of Donald Trump, but it's been a fairly tight race so far. So just know we're going to be following all of these races and what's been driving people out to the polls, and you can see some of the numbers here in the state of North Carolina today.
Yeah. Inflation, look at that at the top, as you would expect.
That's right.
Tom Basile, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. Again, just to get you the breaking news from just about 30 seconds ago, Newsmax projecting Trump winning in the state of Virginia. So that is the first victory of the night for the former president. It will not be the last. We'll see how these numbers change and move as more votes come in, but about, 10,000 votes counted at this time, so only a couple points in. All right, the polls close in North Carolina in 15 minutes. We're going to have that, plus immigration is going to be one of the biggest issues in this election. As we learned, the Biden administration has been spending your money sending jets to Central America to pick illegals up and then dump them into your cities. Utterly insane behavior. We have that coming up next. Welcome back. Virginia, the first state for Trump tonight, projected to take the state. You can see just some of the numbers in. We got maybe 3% in, about 20,000 votes in at this point. But the projection has already occurred. Newsmax projecting that Trump will take the state of Virginia. Again, one of only a couple states that are really in play for Nikki Haley because of the open primary system. And again, a very moderate state in the state of Virginia. But those are the numbers, the projection already in. About 15 minutes after it closed, Biden obviously taking the state as well. We knew that would happen. Also tonight, a bombshell report, as immigration is a top issue in November, showing that the Biden administration is doing everything in its power to destroy this country with illegal immigration. Some of the most ridiculous behavior we have ever seen. The government has now admitted to secretly flying 320,000 illegal immigrants from foreign countries into the United States in the past year. You got 10,000 a day walking across the border. That's not enough. They're taking your money, flying planes, and bringing them in as fast as they can. This according to redacted records from Customs and Border Protection obtained by the Center for Immigration Studies. CBP signed off on these secretive flights that ferried hundreds of thousands of inadmissible aliens into 43 different U.S. airports. So they are all over the country. They were all pre-approved, which means an intern checked the box in 2 seconds for every single one of them, through Biden's CBP One mobile app. Your money goes to NGOs from the government who show illegals how to claim asylum on their phone, and then we are sending planes with your money to go pick them up and then bring them here and dump them into your cities. Just when you thought it couldn't get any more ridiculous, this is what we find. But CBP refused to disclose which airports they were being flown into. The reasoning, because it creates security vulnerabilities, claiming it would reveal operational vulnerabilities that could be exploited by bad actors. Oh, so now they care. And would thereby undermine CBP's law enforcement efforts to secure the U.S. borders. Joining us now, former DHS Deputy Secretary Ken Cuccinelli on this, along with former acting CBP Commissioner Mark Morgan. Good to have you both on. Mark, there's really, honestly, at this point, there's no words to describe just how insane what they're doing to this country is.
Yeah, Rob, I agree. Look, and you laid it out very eloquently. The bottom line, this is something we've been talking about for a very long time. This goes to the heart of the shell game that now we have 100% verification. What they did is they just made a deal with folks that were illegally entering in between the ports of entry and on the southwest border. And they said, hey, look, here's the deal. If you stop doing that so we can avoid bad political optics, we'll let you fill out a couple of lines on the internet, and we'll actually let you board a plane and come to the country where we will process and release you in the United States. It's absurd. They're honestly and actively, intentionally trying to hide it from the American people. And the one last thing, Rob, that I'm really glad you caught is their reason for not being transparent and telling us is because it creates a vulnerability, because it pulls officers off the line, right? Shocker. That's the same thing we've been claiming for the past 3 years at the southern border, and this secretary has denied it for the past 3 years.
It's unbelievable. You know, Ken, I mean, this issue is killing Biden. I mean, he's in the 20s on immigration. And they're trying to play this game where they're pretending like, oh, we're really trying to close the border now, and this was out of our hands, and we need help from Congress. Stories like this gut them on this issue even further.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And, you know, Mark used a word that the White House said was their main concern a year and a half ago, optics.
Yeah.
They aren't worried about the security issues. To them, that's just, hey, we need to say security today. It's only the optics. And now that it's election year for Joe Biden, they're really worried about it. Rob, they've been underwater with Democrat voters on these policies since March of 2021, 3 years, only 2 months into Joe Biden's presidency, and he was underwater on these policies with Democrat voters. My Democrat friends who live with me here in Virginia aren't crazy or stupid, the regular old folks. They don't like these policies. They know they're damaging. There's nowhere for Biden to go here, and they're doing with immigration what they're trying to do with the economy. Just tell you it's okay hard enough and often enough and lie about it enough that eventually you'll believe it.
And Ken,
oh, and by the way, my opponent is a terrible human being, so you should vote for me.
Right. And Ken, the honest truth is, I mean, with this issue, they obviously have a very insidious agenda for what they've done to this country with 7-10 million people bringing in. We know that because the political liability is so strong. What they're doing to themselves politically is so damaging. There must be a huge upside that, you know, we all know what that is. Let's talk. I want to talk exit polling here for a second, Mark. You know, this is a top issue with Republican voters. Immigration at 44% in exit polling with GOP voters. It's much higher than even the economy, which is usually the #1 issue at 28%. I mean, this has evoked a lot of rage from conservative voters, Mark.
Yeah, remember for decades, what was the old saying? Hey, it's the economy, stupid. I think we're seeing history being made right now. Now the phrase should be, it's border security, stupid, right? Yeah. I mean, it's as Ken said, it's undeniable. If you're an intellectually honest person, even remotely so, You cannot deny the chaos and lawlessness that's happening at our border. It's just undeniable now. And even this administration realizes this. And I think it's going to be the election in 2020, the issue in 2024.
Yeah, they need to lose, and they need to get smeared for what they're doing to this country. Ken Cuccinelli and Mark Morgan, to you both, thank you so much.
Good to be with you.
Polls closing in North Carolina in 5 minutes. We are coming back with that. Plus, Joe Biden's plan to blame businesses for his own out-of-control spending and inflation. All that is coming up.
Look, the story's not about me. The story's not about someone else. It's about you. At The Balance, I remember why I'm here. The more we all know, the better we'll all be.
Don't miss Eric Bowling, The Balance, tonight on Newsmax.
I'm Richard Karn, and I love my hose. My hose is lightweight.
Oh, no.
My hose will not kink. Come on. And my hose is anti-leak. It ain't those old hoses. This is my hose. The new Pocket Hose Copper Bullet, now infused with real copper, so your water is always clean and lead-free. Just turn on the water and watch your hose grow and grow to a full-size 3/4-inch hose. And when you turn off the water, away it goes, shrinking and squeezing that water out until it's practically bone dry. Our new inner tube uses 3 layers of high-strength latex on the inside. Then it's wrapped in a new polymer filament jacket. The same technology used in forest fire hoses because it's light and tough. 3 times stronger than the other hoses. It's guaranteed for 10 years. Nearly impossible to tear or snag. And the redesigned connector protector with flexible collar helps stop leaks at the spigot. But my favorite part of our new hose build, the oversized, easy-to-grip fittings. Easy on and off, even with gloves. Perfect for power washing cars and trucks, ready to go anywhere, even your pocket. With more than 100 patents worldwide, it's the best pocket hose in the world.
Get the super light 25-foot Pocket Hose Copper Bullet today for only $29.99. But wait, call now and get our copper spray nozzle with our exclusive thumb drive free. Simply use your thumb to turn off and on. With 10 unique patterns, you can go from delicate flowers to blasting the driveway clean. A $30 value, yours free with every 50-foot copper bullet. But it's not available in stores. This is an exclusive advanced release of our 2024 edition Pocket Hose. There is a strict limit of 3 per order. Don't wait. Order now.
Call 1-800-431-1698. That's 1-800-431-1698. Or visit copperbullet.com. So call 1-800-431-1698. Order now.
Gemstone product I find very versatile, very affordable, very clean install to get the same finished look of a stone product. I think it's a fantastic product, and I don't see us going back to the traditional stone method anytime soon.
Gemstone is DIY friendly, goes from box to the wall in minutes, and can be used for any project inside or out. Like this fireplace, this entry, this chimney, or this complete home transformation.
Gemstone was really easy to cut. We're looking at doing the exterior of the house.
Text WOOD to 59583 to see more Gemstone projects.
It's lightweight and it's durable. It cuts so easy that even an old guy like me can do it. We can all do it. This is not a skilled tradesman job.
Text WOOD to 59583 to save up to 50% over real stone and even more during our winter sale.
Meet Barkley. He's part pit bull and part masterpiece. Meet the Bissell Revolution Hydro Steam. It's part stubborn stain remover and part peacemaker. Bissell, a new breed of clean.
All right, welcome back. We do have some results to bring you here from the state of Vermont, which closed 29 minutes ago, polls closing in that state. I don't believe we have a projection just yet on Vermont, but what we do have is, with maybe 800 votes counted, Trump at 63 points, Nikki Haley at 33. So they haven't called this state. Again, this is a very blue state with an open primary. And we know that these Democrats love to play little games to screw with Donald Trump, so we're wondering what they're going to do up there to try and make this thing probably tighter than it should be. But we will wait. The former president has already got in Virginia projected for him by Newsmax here. So he's got one state down at this point. And we'll continue to follow. We're going to bring in our Newsmax host, Jen Pellegrino, along with former Special Assistant to President Trump, Mark Lauder. Good to have you guys.
Great to be in New York with you.
So I wanted to show something here from the New York Times today, just to start off and have a very funny conversation here, which a paper that's become a parody of itself. Look at this headline here. It says, "Do Americans have a collective amnesia about Donald Trump?" This is from the reporters and the op-ed writers at the New York Times, saying that more than 3 years of distance from the daily onslaught has faded, changed, and in some cases warped Americans' memories of events that at the time felt searing. Polling suggests voters' views on Mr. Trump's policies and his presidency have improved in the rearview mirror. In interviews, voters have often have a hazy recall of one of the most tumultuous periods in modern politics. Mark, the New York Times, with a straight face, is basically trying to say, I can't believe voters are forgetting about all of that nonsense we manufactured about Trump 4 years ago. We thought we scared them more than this with all the
oh my God.
I mean, it's like they're so angry that people actually like Trump, no matter as hard as they tried to vilify him.
Can you believe it?
It's amazing.
How dare you not remember that we had more money in our pockets? Gas was cheaper. You could afford groceries. The border was secure. There were no wars going on. I mean, what kind of collective memory do you have?
It is amazing.
This is though, sadly, this is what they've got. This is the only thing they have, because you looked at the New York Times polls over the weekend. Nearly half the voters said Trump policies were better for their families, and nearly an identical number said Biden policies are worse for my family.
Right.
And that's what this election is going to be about, is are you better off now than you were prior to the pandemic?
Yeah.
And the answer is no.
Jen, I mean, it speaks in another poll. This is also a New York Times Siena College poll. I'm sure that the people at the Times hate this poll. It found that last month, 10% of Biden's 2020 voters now say they're flipping to Trump, and none of Trump's voters are going to flip to Joe Biden. I mean,
so
isn't that unbelievable?
I mean, this whole amnesia thing, this is the legacy media trying to cope with the fact that they can no longer spin the disaster that we've seen under Joe Biden. Again, Mark outlined so much of it, from the border, the economy. So many Americans are frustrated. The Biden administration is telling them Bidenomics is working, the border is closed. They're sick of being lied to. And, I think they went after Trump, obviously, because of COVID. That was the only thing they could really criticize him for. And he did a lot of great things during that time. I was in the briefing room. But here they are, and they're saying, you know what, we're tired. This is not the direction we want to see the country headed in.
Yeah.
And Joe Biden, age is obviously an issue as well, that they look at that. So it doesn't surprise me.
The media, they're going to try so hard to flip
they
this
try.
thing any way they can, and they're not going to be able to do it this time. And that's one of the most beautiful things, is that people have awakened to what the media machine really is. So all these little tactics are not going to work in this next run. And I think they're realizing that,
It's really difficult for any campaign to try to convince voters that what they see with their own eyes, what they feel, what they have in their pocket isn't real. Trust me with what I say.
And keep an eye out Thursday, State of the Union. The Biden campaign saying this is their reset moment to put it out there. All that Joe Biden has done.
Thursday will be the gaslight of the century.
How many resets do you get?
I got to leave it there, guys. Good to see you both. Thank you so much, Jen Pellegrino, Mark Lauder. Okay, polls are now officially closed 3 minutes ago in the state of North Carolina. Let's check in with Tom Basili at the big board on that. Hey, Tom.
All right, no results from North Carolina just yet, but we are starting to see some numbers come in from the state of Vermont. You showed these earlier, and they're starting to tick up here. But let's take a look and see if we have anything in Washington County. Nothing quite yet, but we are seeing some additional numbers for Joe Biden in the state of Vermont. There, in the state of Virginia, we were discussing how Nikki Haley could potentially get some votes here, where those votes may come from. And if we take a look at what is coming in now, and you take a look at Loudoun County, this is in the outskirts of Washington, D.C., a much more moderate area. Look, Nikki Haley at 46% of the vote. And again, these votes are going to be allocated, the delegates in Virginia allocated proportionally. But you would look at places like Fairfax County, Loudoun County, and Prince William. Those are places where we're going to see Haley potentially do better. But overall, if you take a look at where Trump is, he's going to to win with more than 50% of the vote, it looks like at this point. And we're going to continue to monitor this and our friends down in North Carolina as those numbers come in over the course of the next hour.
He's got Virginia, Vermont still up in the air. North Carolina just closed. It's going to be coming here any second now. Tom, thank you so much. I want to bring an update to you in the fight to remove DA Fani Willis, who's had a heck of a rough couple weeks from the election interference case against former President Trump. Defense attorneys say that they have 2 new witnesses disputing the timeline of Willis's relationship with her special prosecutor, Nathan Wade, and that is a huge problem for Fani. According to court filings obtained by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Cindy Lee Yeager and Manny Aurora, both attorneys, have spoken personally with Wade's law partner, Terrence Bradley, who testified last month. Defense attorneys say that Yeager and Aurora have personal knowledge that Bradley told them that Willis and Wade began their love affair back in 2019 or 2020. And that is far earlier than what they had testified to in court. They both claimed that their romance began in early 2022. They need that to be what is believed if they want to stay on this case and not be in a whole lot of trouble. Willis hired Wade to lead the prosecution a year before that in 2021, a very high-paid job that afforded both of them luxury travel. But again, they need people to believe that they just met on the job and it was all, whatever. But it's starting to look like Fani Willis may have lied under oath about the timeline of when she met and had the affair with the guy that she got to run the case against Trump. Bad news. All right, Biden forming a new task force designed to deflect blame for one of his biggest political liabilities. That is next. Okay, welcome back. It only took about 7 minutes. Newsmax projecting North Carolina goes to former President Trump on this Super Tuesday, the second of 15 GOP states voting today. There are 3 with the polls closing here in this hour: Vermont, Virginia, and North Carolina. At this point, Virginia and North Carolina both going to former President Trump, projected at this point. We're still waiting on Vermont. We've got 6 more at the top of the hour that will close as well as we move through this night. But again, Virginia was a big one because that was going to be a close one, and it's already been projected for the former president. All right, no bigger issue than the economy coming up in November. I think we can all agree on that, and Americans are getting crushed by inflation and also by debt. Living check to check, paycheck to paycheck, racking up over $1 trillion in credit card debt in this country. You want to know how this is all being held up? Everybody's carrying a bunch of debt, hoping to just keep it going as long as they can. Only 43% of millennials are homeowners. The American dream is disappearing as our government steals the wealth of this country to grow itself. That's the honest truth. And as Biden spends trillions more every single year than we bring in, the administration is now launching a joint task force between the Federal Trade Commission and the DOJ to try and fool you and deflect blame for his horrible presidency and the ridiculous spending of Washington. This task force will go after unfair and illegal corporate pricing, hoping that you'll believe that it's corporate greed that is crushing your wallet and destroying this country with inflation and debt, and not rampant government spending. Take a listen.
Even as supply chains are back to normal, some companies are still not passing along the savings to their customers. Many corporations are raising their prices to pad their profits, charging folks more and more for less and less.
That's a man that hates the private sector, as do most people that want a massive government. Mike Huckabee joins me now, the former governor of Arkansas. And, sir, it's good to have you back on. I want to start real quick before we get to that. It took 7 minutes to call North Carolina. We've got Virginia as well, still waiting on Vermont. But it's looking more and more likely that there could potentially be a sweep tonight for the former president over Nikki Haley.
I don't think there's any doubt about it. Nikki Haley has a big problem, and it's not that she's failing to get out of the race. Her biggest problem was that she got in. She got in after she promised that if Donald Trump would run, she wouldn't, because he was a great president and she would support him. And then she completely decided, no, I didn't really mean it. So she's blown her credibility, and I think that's one of the challenges that she's had. She's trying to run as the, gee, I'm not Trump. And a lot of people are saying, yeah, that's why we're not going to to vote for you because we want someone like Trump who will fight hard, who will get back to the economic successes that we had when he was president. And now, boy, do we ever need them.
Yeah, that swamp would eat Nikki Haley's lunch is the sad truth. And watching her last week and earlier this week, effectively say that, she's all in on what the DOJ is doing to Trump and that all these cases need to be decided before the election, cheering on this obvious lawfare, that's not going to win her any favor in the Republican Party, that's for certain. Back to, though, the big issue, obviously the economy is in this primary, in this election in November. This is a huge issue. You've got Biden that keeps saying he's a deficit cutter. We are adding $1 trillion to our national debt every single 100 days. And Democrats won't even talk about it. And now they're creating this fake commission because he needs some way to deflect blame for inflation away from him. So he needs it to be corporate America's fault.
Simple comparison here. If you don't like the way that a company is pricing its business, you go to somewhere else. If the hamburger is too high at store A, you go to store B. Sooner or later, somebody's going to sell you something at a better price. They may not sell it at the best price you've ever had because thanks to Joe Biden, it costs more to move materials from one place to the other. Farmers' costs are up. Production costs are up. Transportation costs are up. So, yeah, things cost more, but it's not the fault of private sector businesses. It's the fault of a government that has re-regulated the things that Donald Trump deregulated. Yeah. And it's also a policy of putting extraordinary cost on energy when Donald Trump had us energy independent for the first time in 75 years.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I have a buddy that owns a small business in the Midwest, and I mean, he's paying his employees, used to pay him $12 an hour, now he has to pay him $25. And Joe Biden's out there saying that it's corporate America's fault that things are more expensive. Yeah, right. Governor Huckabee, good to see you, sir. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Polls close in 6 more states in 15 minutes. Will Trump sweep the night? He's already got 2 in the bag. We've got more coming up. All right, coming back in on this Super Tuesday, I want to bring you the latest numbers. Not a lot counted so far in the state of Vermont. 6% in, what, a couple thousand votes, maybe 2,600 votes counted at this point. Trump up about 15 points over Nikki Haley. Now, Newsmax has projected Trump winning the state of Virginia, also has projected Trump winning the state of North Carolina. There are 3 states that have now closed. North Carolina just closed about 20 minutes ago. Of those 3 states, 2 have been called, North Carolina, Virginia. Vermont still has not. We're going to bring in Trump's pollster, John McLaughlin, who's joining us now from the big Trump speech and party at Mar-a-Lago tonight. We also have our senior political analyst, Rick Santorum, with us here, and good to see you both. Rick, I want to start with you. Obviously, you've been here before. You've been a contender on Super Tuesday. You won some states on Super Tuesday. Vermont's the state that's still out at this point.
It's really the one state that, if you look at the demographic, it's the one state that Nikki Haley is going to be competitive in and potentially could win the state. She has Phil Scott, who's the moderate governor, Republican governor of Vermont. Spent some time with her, campaigned with her. She made some stops there. So I think they're putting some eggs in that basket, whether the early returns, it looked like from more of the rural areas. Relatively close race. Haven't seen anything from Chittenden County, which is where Burlington is, and that's where probably Haley's stronghold will be. So we'll wait and see. Yeah, Burlington. We'll wait and see what those numbers look like.
Yeah. So you say, I mean, you think maybe it could be within 10 points? You think it could be that tight?
I'd be surprised, just given some of these early numbers. Again, I don't know every place they've been from, but I mean, this looks like it'll be the most. My guess is this will be the most competitive race tonight.
John, over to you at Mar-a-Lago. It's interesting. It's obviously it's an open primary in this state. It's a very political state. It's a very left state as well. What do you think that there's any chance that Democrat voters that would never vote for a Republican are impacting this?
I mean, this is not a good night for Nikki Haley, but it's a great night for Donald Trump because when you're talking about Vermont, look at all the other states. North Carolina's going strong for Trump. Virginia's going for Trump. We're going to keep winning across the country. By the way, Vermont, we win Vermont. It's great because you have these open primaries where there are some Biden. We saw this in South Carolina. We saw it in New Hampshire. You had Biden Democrats with a history of voting in Democrat primaries favorable to him coming in in and crossing over. And still Trump wins big. And that's why we're winning in all the national polls, whether it's CBS, whether it's the New York Times, whether it's Harvard Harris. You've got these polls, Wall Street Journal. Donald Trump's ahead of Joe Biden, beating Joe Biden, and that's what this is all about. The general election has started, the Republican Party's uniting, and we're winning, but we've got 245 days to go. We got to keep winning.
Senator, I mean, he makes a great point. I mean, these polls coming out are eviscerating Nikki Haley's entire message, which is that, you know, Trump can't win and that you need another option. I mean, when you have a Republican leading in presidential polling, you never really see that.
No, I mean, this is going to be a great night. John is right. It's going to be a great night for Donald Trump. Vermont might be close. It's 17 delegates. It's actually fewer delegates than she won in the District of
Trump
Columbia.
will get the other 840, right?
So, and in most of these states, they're proportional unless you get 50%. Well, the fact that Nikki actually succeeded in getting this race down to a two-person race actually makes it harder for her to get delegates because it's a two-person race. It's actually easy to get to 50% because if you win, you're going to be over 50%, which means he's going to collect more delegates. So even the path, because some people say, well, she'll stick around, she'll get delegates. Well, not necessarily because you're down to a two-person race and it's winner take all over 50 in most of these states. She's not going to get any delegates.
Yeah. John, you know, it's funny to watch how the media has been spinning this. They're trying to keep Nikki Haley alive as long as they possibly can because they know it helps Biden. The Daily Beast saying that the results tonight don't really actually matter, that she can still win without winning as long as she's competitive. They say that it could be, I mean, it's the Daily Beast, obviously, but this is
I
what
wish
we're
they
seeing
said that
from the
about
media.
me back when I was running. You know,
right? That's not fair.
I'd lose by 2 or 3 points, and they'd say, he's over, it's over.
Yeah, John, go ahead.
But, by the way, I'd love to take more polls for President Trump, but she's not going to win. It's mathematically impossible. So we're going to keep winning. The general election's on. We're focused on beating Joe Biden, which Donald Trump is doing right now. And I was with him in 2016. I was with him in 2020. We've never seen the excitement, the enthusiasm, the unity, and leading in national polls right now. We would, if the election was today, we'd win in a landslide, but it's not today. We still got to work really hard to make sure we win in November. From now until November, we got to keep winning every day.
John McLaughlin at Mar-a-Lago. We're Senator Rick Santorum here in the studio. Good to see you guys. We appreciate it. All right. We'll be right back. All right, on this Super Tuesday, just want to come back and give you the update from what we've seen this hour. We've had Virginia was called first for the former president, or projected, I should say, first for the former president. Newsmax projecting North Carolina is that one right there, Donald Trump over Nikki Haley. Also the state of Virginia. North Carolina was called about 7:37. Virginia earlier in the hour when their polls closed around 7 o'clock. Called for the former president. Vermont is still out at this point. It's been about an hour since Vermont's polls closed. Looks like a little tighter there. We're going to talk about that a lot tonight. Also have here in about a minute 6 more states: Alabama, Maine, Massachusetts, Oklahoma, Texas, and Tennessee are going to start closing. Arkansas around 8:30, and Eric Bolling is going to bring you through all of that in the 8 o'clock hour, and he joins me now for the last few seconds of this show.
Good to be here. Ready
the question
to go.
is there going to be the sweep tonight?
I think it will.
It feels like
you know,
it, right?
feels like it. And you know, he's what, 274 going into the night. He gets, let's say he gets 80-90% of the delegates. You know, it's striking distance. That's next Tuesday. That would put him over.
Yeah.
Georgia, a couple other states would put him over. So again, the question for me is, does Nikki Haley bow out tonight at midnight when California closes, or does she wait till tomorrow?
You think it might be tomorrow? I don't know. That's optimistic. I don't know when she's going to
spending the money, Rob? Who is going to continue to fund this? And I know someone said that there are literally no plans on her schedule for the next few days. So.
She's wide open. That is a big indicator. All right, I'll leave it to you, Eric. Good to see you.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Rob. Good job.
Right.
And we're on it all night, folks.